copies. After notice of this meeting, the Pinelands Commission was given in compliance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act by providing notice to all municipal and county clerks within the Pinelands area to the Secretary of State on December 23rd, 2015, and to the Commission's officially designated newspapers on December 23rd, 2015, by posting a copy on the board's board.
Nancy, could you do roll call?
Sure, good morning. Commissioner Ashman? Here. Commissioner Avery?
Here.
Commissioner Barr?
Here.
Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Commissioner Sheila?
Here.
Commissioner Cabello? Commissioner Galetta?
Here.
Here. Commissioner Generon? Here. Commissioner Lloyd?
Here.
Commissioner Lowbauer?
Here.
Commissioner McGlinchey? Commissioner Prickett?
Here.
Commissioner Quinn?
Here.
Commissioner Roman Green?
Here.
Your own.
Okay, please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we move the minutes, a couple announcements. You might wonder why blueberry farmers share this meeting. I have good news. Our chair has got an addition to his family, a little girl, and it's a proper Irish name I want to read.
All right.
It's Lachlan Fiona Early. So I want to wish the family. Okay, we have a packed house, and I think, we're just about at capacity on the room. So if anybody else comes in the room, we might have to table the board requires public comment. We're just about at capacity. I'm going to ask everybody, because we're packed, please, 3 minutes. Jess will be timing us. Give us written comment, please, and if we have time, we'll do seconds, but I don't see that today. Let's be respectful. Let's be ladies and gentlemen. We welcome your comment. Okay, did everybody receive the minutes? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have an abstention. Okay. Committee chairs and executive director report. Ed, do you have anything from that? I guess we didn't have a meeting on that.
No, we are scheduling a meeting in the I believe, in the month of April.
Okay.
We did not meet this time.
Okay. T and I did meet January 29th. Committee recommended commission certification of the Investigative Ordinance 15-009 and asked for additional information concerning the ownership and deed restriction of certain properties. Among the provisions of the ordinance are 2 small management area changes correcting mapping discrepancies. The committee received a presentation on potential enhancements to the Pineland Development Credit Program. The committee received an update on the 2015 round of the Pineland Conservation Fund. Of the 5 projects, 2 projects have closed and 3 projects were granted extensions until June 30th, 2016 to meet the conditions of the grant. The committee discussed how it could uphold provisions of the CMP while dealing with motorized vehicles on state islands, state lands being discussed at New Jersey DEP and affordable housing issues now before the courts. Nancy, could you start with the executive director's report? Oh, you have a question? I'm sorry. Well, Candy, on your report, I thought
I'll do it whenever you want.
the agenda discusses that pretty extensively at the end of the meeting. If you want to, if we could just hold that towards the end. We have other agenda item. We can try. That's going to be long-winded on that one, I believe. No, I know. So let's move to executive director's report.
Sure. The Pinelands short course is tomorrow. Paul has attended.
Going well.
So if any commissioners have signed up, if you haven't, I'm sure we can still accommodate you. So that's the big short course tomorrow. I attended the municipal council meeting last week. They swore in their officers. There was a presentation on the Pinelands Byway project. For a while, years ago, we were sort of shepherding that project along to a certain point, and then we handed it off more to the municipalities and the counties. It's kind of gotten stuck, so we're going to try to reinvigorate it and help it get to the end point. It's pretty close, so that was a timely, good discussion. We are creeping our way towards having phones. I'm sure many of you know we've been without phones for several weeks now. Jessica Lynch and her staff have been working very hard. Someone from another state agency found some parts like in their basement, which we used to sort of patch together a few phones now. So some of us have phones, which is exciting. By the end of next week, we've awarded the contract. They've been here. We should be up and running by the end of next week. So that was a lot of effort on the part of staff, a lot of time. And that got done, so that's good. The other sort of pending item we had was we've been discussing affordable housing. Staff continues to study that and meet with other people. We have discussed sending a letter. We've been settled in on the fact that we would send it to the municipalities. We have a draft. We're tinkering with it. We agreed to share it with the bishop before we announce it. We're going to do that. That should happen shortly.
Larry?
Just one thing I wanted to bring up is, you may remember that we've, last year we contracted with the Office of OIT to do an online GIS of our data layers. They've made substantial progress on that. They've delivered a draft version, what might be called a beta version. Our staff are testing it. The idea will be that it'll be online for the municipal officials, the public, landowners, whatever. They'll be able to access it through either your address or block and lot information. You'll have access to all of our data layers. Things like representing the species, multiple resources, we don't think people go out and collect. But everything else will be online at some point, probably later this year. We're beta testing it now, and it's really good. So that's all I have.
So how do you find it? You go to the website?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chuck?
Good morning, Commissioners, members of the public. Just 3 quick items. First, I just wanted to mention that the Stafford Township waiver of certain compliance that we anticipated being on today's Commission agenda has been moved forward. We anticipate now that it'll be in the April Commission agenda. For those of you that were wondering why that wasn't listed. The second item I wanted to note was that we now received an application on the long process for Southampton Township to reconstruct their public works yard. Some of the commissioners may remember that there were some reports in the paper about 6 months ago about that application and how it was moving through the Pinelands Commission. We worked carefully with the Township Committee, and we now have the application to reconstruct their existing public works yard. And the last thing I just wanted to note was yesterday we were advised that apparently some of the water control boards at Chatsworth Lake, apparently they've either rotted out or there's been some type of failure at that dam. The lake level has dropped down. I heard from the fire chief in the township yesterday of their safety concerns regarding the fact that that's the lake that's used for firefighting purposes. And I assure the fire chief that the routine maintenance did not require application to us. Trying to get we'll get a letter out today to that fact. We're sure that the repairs of the dam do not require application for Pinelands Commission. That's all I had to report.
Do you have an application now for the repair?
We do not. We just had an inquiry, Commissioner. Routine repairs do not require an application to the Pinelands Commission.
So they could go right ahead.
That is correct. And I advised them that yesterday verbally, and we'll follow up today. Written.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chuck, I just had a question about the Stafford waiver. Somewhat complex application. I wonder if any of the materials associated with that are available to the commissioners to read through online. I know we had an independent engineer's evaluation of the project done. I know there's probably some public comment for us to go through. Would that be available to us now?
Well, the answer to that is yes. All that information is public. It's available to not only the commissioners, but everyone. I think that's a question we'll have to discuss discussed about whether or not we're going to post it on our website. That leads to many other issues about posting all application materials on our
Then could
website.
it be sent to the commissioners?
Yes, I believe so. I'll check to make sure, but it's all publicly available.
Okay.
How it's delivered may be another question, but it's all publicly available.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Larry, Nancy? One other item, the chairman also told me by next meeting, he'll have the reshuffled committee assignments. If you didn't already reach out to him, and any of your preferences, do so the next week, but he's real close to finalizing the final committees. Okay, moving on to our next resolution where the record's closed. We don't have to go into closed session unless if somebody moves this resolution, it's a legal question. At that point, I'm going to ask the commissioners to go into the library instead of evacuating the room. But if there's no questions or no legal questions, we could probably just vote on this in open meeting.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to the commission. I'm prepared to discuss it in closed session briefly as necessary if you feel they have the appreciation to vote on resolution.
So let's move on to at least getting it adopted first and see where everybody feels. I have a motion.
Chairman, what resolution are you talking about?
I'm sorry, the peg leg web.
Yeah, I see that. We're just receiving that now.
It was in the packet.
Oh, what?
It was in the packet.
The resolution to adopt this.
Yes. Yeah, the resolution to adopt it as,
This was not in the packet.
this one was not, this one here. But we did have the original one, Bob, in the packet.
I would suggest that the commissioners retire to the library so that your deputy attorney general can provide legal counsel to you. This is just from a factual perspective, an administrative law matter. The commission received the initial decision, and your deputy will advise you to, in regards to the law, so that you can issue a final decision.
Is everybody okay with that? All right,
Mr. Chairman, could we move that to the end of the agenda so that we can do the public first?
The record is closed on this matter.
Understood.
It's a quasi-judicial matter.
Understood. I'm not suggesting you take public comment on it. I'm just suggesting for the convenience of the public, we just do this at the end.
Well, the record has to be closed, and if somebody, I would feel more comfortable doing it now, personally. I think that was the recommendation. Is that right, Sean? Or do you have a problem?
I don't have a strong opinion. I think it's whatever the commission says on
What's your flavor? You want to move it to the end?
I think
There's a couple commissioners that have to leave early, so I know.
Yeah, I believe it's well weighted.
So as everybody plans on staying till the end, I'm okay with that, but it could be a long-winded meeting. You can't stay?
It depends how long, but I'd like to see it to the out because of that issue.
The only thing I would ask, commissioners, is this final decision needs to be issued after this meeting. A decision needs to be done at this meeting because there are set statutory timelines in association with administrative law decisions. Because of that, and I know it's difficult given that we want to give the public the opportunity to speak, I guess I would suggest that you go into closed session now. It may be a short closed session, but I would be concerned that if we were to lose a quorum, because people have to leave.
I apologize to the audience, but I think that that's the right direction, so I'm going to ask for a motion. I think Mark was first.
Would you like to stay in
So,
and switch spots?
all in favor of going into closed session? Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, so we'll just move into the library with people.
Hey guys.
can look this up on their website. But I think
I can't find it either. I know, I think what it is, but I don't know.
it would be nice if they say what the application is, not just the person. You know what I mean? One thing they said was, is it a park, is it a building? No, I don't understand the development. I think it's a development. They must have denied.
Don't worry, if you want to read it, all my dear bodies.
What's this?
If you want to read it, all my dear bodies.
Morning, Jay. How are you?
Okay, I know what it is.
McDonald's.
I'm correct. What is it? It is a landowner in Jackson County. They own, I think it's about 74 acres. I could be wrong, it could be right. They own it. They are in a forest management area. Jackson County, and they were in a rural, somehow they got put in a rural development. I don't know if it was a master plan change that should not have occurred. But the town then put it back into the forest area. When it put it back into the forest area, the landowner said that the town did not do it correctly. He wants to go around. I don't know if he wants to explain the entire but they went to court. Now, that was the town. So why has it gotten to the Pinelands Commission level? I don't know. And it must be because there's some kind of settlement agreement with the township to allow them to be rural development. See, no new mines are permitted in the forest area under the Pinelands Commission. So if this is what it is, and the town goes along with it, then what they're doing is allowing for a new mine to be established. So I don't know what's going on. I was following the applications. I would say, well, maybe not. When it comes to mines, there's also laws involved.
Oh, but no matter. Yes, okay, yeah.
So I want to talk to the my approach, which one you could ask them, I'm going to see if they will bring in a chair. I have to be closer because it's really, they don't have a good microphone system. You cannot hear well. So, and I'm recording everything you say. And I want to be up there. I don't want to be back here, but I really appreciate your program.
Sure, just briefly, during closed session, I briefly provided legal advice with regard to the final decision that we go on the table.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion for PEG web resolution.
You're not here.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat this one?
We did not hear the summary.
Okay.
During closed session, I briefed the commission and gave legal advice on the final decision that is being voted on the PEG matter.
Somebody describe Peg Leg.
It's a resolution on the agenda. Okay.
I think that we've done.
Okay, Ed and Mark were first and second. Any discussion? That's not legal. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, motion carried. Moving on to no review of local approval, we have a bundle of resolutions. Cape May County Municipal Authority, South Jersey Transportation Authority, and North Hanover Township resolution.
Move it.
Okay, Alan. Second? Ed? Okay, Ed. Any discussion on these resolutions?
I would just like to say, the Cape May landfill is eaten up by, it's an exception. People should know it's an exception to the plan. Because Cape May had nowhere else for their landfill. And other reasons. I mean, it was a subject of long discussions at the commission. And I keep wondering whether each of these things that are added to the landfill are really things that belong at the end. But that's just a personal observation, so go for it. There is a deed restricted piece of land in the middle of this landfill. You should know about the red-headed woodpecker. And there are some areas that are restricted around this landfill. So I just think commissioners should look at those maps and think about Cape May and in its general application. I'm not criticizing their application particularly. I just keep wondering when we stop. Thank you.
Whenever you say so.
Anybody else? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, motion carries. Okay, moving on to the Code of Manchester Township. Before we look, did you want to brief us, Susan, on this? Okay, do I have Alan first?
Second.
Bob, second. Any discussion, or do you want to go right into Susan's presentation? Okay, let's go to Susan.
Okay. All right. So,
Yes.
So this ordinance for Manchester is actually adopts a new zoning map. The adoption of the ordinance that the township did a year or two ago. I should have noticed issues, had to go back and redo it. There are two zoning changes that have been adopted that result in changes in Pinelands management area boundaries. So those are the two I'm going to just focus on for a couple minutes this morning. We don't see a lot of management area changes, so there's somewhat unusual. I'm going to make sure you're all comfortable with them and to see the maps. Maps are attached to the report. This is the first one. In red outline is the Pinelands village of Beckerville, which is partly in the forest. It comes partly from the forest area and partly from the preservation area. The portion you're seeing there is preservation area. So to the left is preservation area district. The red outline is the village. So if you see this property right here, you can see this looks like a horse track. This is all one property. And the zoning line right now, the village boundary slices right through the middle of it. When the boundaries of Beckerville were originally established back in 1993, that entire property was not in the village. It was left in the preservation area district. And then subsequently, the township adopted a revised zoning map to make some other changes, and somehow the boundary here was changed, not intentionally, but it was. And those maps have been in place for 20-some years. We've been working with the township extensively over the last few years to resolve what seems like hundreds of zoning and mapping discrepancies. This is one of them. We're finally able to get the township to take a look at this and realize that there's really no sense to the existing zoning line cutting through the property that way. And they have rezoned this half of the property back to the preservation area district where it belongs. So the new zoning line will follow property lines, which is very important. I'm going to go into that in a minute with the second change, but it'll follow this yellow line, which is a little hard to see in the light here, but that'll be the village boundary, which essentially will be returning the village boundary back to its originally certified lines. So this is a good thing. The boundary will make a lot more sense, it'll be a lot easier to administer, and it's really just a correction of an error that occurred sort of inadvertently many years ago. So there's about 20 acres involved in the change, so we'll be going from village to preservation area district. So that's that one. The next map also involves portions of several lots. In this case here, the area outlined in purple is the Pinelands town of Whiting in Manchester, and then to the right here, this is actually the forest area in Berkeley Township. So this line is the municipal boundary between Manchester and Berkeley. And if you look right here, try to keep the light shaky, but right along this line, in between the purple and the yellow, there's this little strip of forest area of green in Manchester between Whiting and the municipal boundary. These are actually portions of this big lot here. This is all part of one big lot. This is all part of one big lot. And there's this little strip that was left, not included in Whiting, back when the township was originally certified, I think in '83. So the zoning has been like this forever. A couple years ago, the township asked us, as part of resolving all of their zoning and mapping discrepancies, well, they didn't really ask. They said, this doesn't make any sense. Obviously, this was a mistake. We should push the boundary, it should follow the lot lines. When I did a little research, I realized, well, it actually wasn't a mistake. That was done intentionally by the commission back in 1983, with the thought being that this was the boundary of Whiting, this was all forest area, there should be a little bit of a buffer between the residential development that was going to occur in Whiting and the large forest area that's adjacent. So the thought then was, well, we'll leave this little strip of land, part of these larger lots, in the forest area so it won't be so intensively developed. Since that time, 30 or so years have gone by, and all of these lands here in Berkeley are now permanently protected and under state ownership. So there's not going to be any forest area, low density residential development here. They are preserved. As you can clearly see from the map, there's two large retirement communities and mobile home parks here in Whiting, and two distinct communities here. And if you even look closer, if you can zoom in a little bit, you'll see that some of the development kind of crept into this area. And that's probably a function. It's very difficult to map these things. We can show you this where we think the lines are, but these aren't measured distances. It's just a strip with a big heavy black line on the old zoning map. So very difficult to administer for both the township and the commission. And this is a prime example of why we've spent the last 20 or so years trying very hard to get the municipalities to revise their zoning maps so that zoning lines follow property lines, because we run into these issues. Here you can clearly see the development's right up against the municipal boundary already. So the township said this was about 2 years ago, they wanted to rezone this strip of land, the portions of these lots, and so that they would be entirely within one zoning district and one Pinelands management area. In this case, it's a retirement community zone in Whiting. The township planner at the time, who was the planner for maybe 20, 25 years in Manchester, told us that the lands were protected, they were open space, there wasn't going to be any further development, that it couldn't happen there. I tried to confirm that with the newer administration in Manchester, and they're not as familiar with these properties as the prior people were. So, this had come up at the Policy Implementation Committee meeting. This land here, this little tiny strip of portions of these lots, is not separately owned. It's owned by the companies that own these mobile home parks. They're actually assessed as commercial properties if you look on the tax records. So it's not that there's a homeowners association that's in charge of this little strip of land. It's just part of the overall property that's managed and owned by these two companies. I would still suggest that there isn't really any development potential here. You can see they've already, intruded into this area. There's already some mobile home units here. It's unlikely, I think, that they're, again, you're looking at where we think the line is on these maps. It's possible that the development's out the line here too. So there's not a lot of room for any additional development, but even if there were, we're talking about tiny strips of property that altogether amount to maybe 30 acres that would be changed from forest to town in an effort to clean up the map and follow the lot lines. It's not a change that's proposed by the township in order to facilitate additional development. It wasn't proposed by the mobile home parks or anything like that. It's strictly a cleanup of what the township views as a very difficult line to administer. So we're comfortable, very comfortable recommending approval of it. Given that these lands are all preserved now, and the development is already pushed right up against this line, trying to maintain this little buffer strip, there seems to be very little value in that anymore, given that they've already sort of intruded into that area. So we're comfortable recommending approval of both of the management area changes that I showed you. So the village would be reduced by 20 acres, and the town here would be increased by just about 30 acres. I think neither change is really going to have much of an impact at all in terms of development potential. I can't promise that because I haven't been able to get my hands on any kind of deed restrictions that apply to this strip of land. There probably aren't any. They call it the common open space, they treat it that way, but I don't know that it's actually permanently protected in any way. I suspect that it is not. But in any case, in an effort to clean up the map and align boundaries, property lines, for all kinds of good reasons, we are recommending approval of both of these changes.
Any questions? Okay, all in favor? Please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. I see that we had a LOI, letter of interpretation. Did anybody have any questions on the letter of interpretation? Okay, we're going to move into public comment on agenda items. So since, I'm sorry.
Sorry, I neglected to say this after Nancy's report. I want to thank you for organizing this tour of Wharton. And I apologize that I actually cannot be on that tour. You instituted that when we first started working on it. And it was fantastic to get out into this glorious land and see everything up front and personal. It was excellent. Haven't done it in a while. So I'm sorry, but thank you for doing it. And any commissioners who can make it, I strongly encourage you to. Nothing like visual aids, and it's fun being out in this place.
Okay, at this time, we have public comment on agenda items. And since Wharton Track is on the agenda, even though it's convoluted and it's at order, we're going to allow public comment on Wharton Track on this public comment portion. I do ask everybody to be a lady and a gentleman. Keep it to 3 minutes. Jess has got a timer. And we'll have a second public comment later. If there's anything else, maybe we can take seconds depending on the time. So, with that being said, we have first Dr. DeVita.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about Wharton State Forest. Emil DeVito, New Jersey Conservation Foundation. I've been doing research in Wharton State Forest since 1981. Conservation, when I was an undergraduate at Rutgers, Conservation Foundation, as you know, has been involved in working to protect the Pine Barrens for probably 50 years, since the formation of the Pinelands Conservation Committee, and I think it was the early 1960s, if I'm not mistaken. The destruction that's going on to our wetlands and critical upland areas in Wharton State Forest is unprecedented. I did the surveys in the fall. In the last couple of weeks, I've done additional surveys, and I stick by my estimate that 30% of the wetlands, vernal ponds, stream sides, all sorts of critical habitats for threatened and endangered species and unique natural communities, about 30% of them have severe impact. Another 30% are experiencing the beginnings of moderate impact, and maybe only about 30% remain in a pristine state. Some of the places are so remote that it's hard to believe that people are getting to these places with their monster trucks and gigantic vehicles. I'm sure that they're using the apps on their phone, and it's like a video game. look for a place that doesn't have tire tracks, look for a place where the wetlands aren't dug up and churned up into mud, and let's go there and find them and get them, okay? That's what's happening. The damages amount to hundreds of millions of dollars of ecological damages. They're all against the law. They violate the Clean Water Act, the Pinelands Protection Act, almost every possible rule that you can think of, they're being violated. These natural resources are being damaged in an unprecedented way, and it's because of the technology of the vehicles that didn't exist for the hundreds of years of all these little sand roads and trails in the Pine Barrens, when the only person that could go down with a little small, low horsepower vehicle or a pickup truck or a small Jeep, they stayed in the tire tracks and plants would grow in the middle of the road, and you had those lonely scenes of Pine Barrens Road that you've seen for decades. Those roads are being destroyed. All the vegetation in the middle of the roads are gone because of ATVs wandering back and forth and slicing through all the sand. The technology that exists is apparently people what they feel is a right to use that technology for the purpose at which they're purchasing the machines, which is to churn up mud and churn up sand dunes for the fun of it. Now, it might be that those people don't realize that they're destroying natural resources, but it doesn't matter if they realize it or not. They're destroying the natural resources in violation of the CMP, the Freshwater Wetlands Act, the U.S. Clean Water Act, and other rules. The only way to fix that is to have a map. We need a map of where people cannot operate a motor vehicle. It doesn't matter what form the map takes, but it has to be a map that shows where you can be and where you can't be. And I urge you to do everything you can to make sure that the DEP creates that map.
My name is Mike Hickey. I go out in Oregon State Forest every weekend on foot. I run long distances through there. I'm not part of any of the stakeholder groups. Like I said, I just go out there to run. When the map was in place, it was a whole lot safer. There were places where I knew I wasn't going to encounter any Jeeps. That's not the case anymore. About a month ago, I almost got hit by a Jeep. I don't expect that on a single track hiking trail. But there's these roads that are so obscure, you can't see them. Most of the Jeeps are quiet and are driven lawfully, to be honest. But you can't see them. You come running down a trail with the wind in your ears, wind in the trees, it's not safe. So I stay off roads that are heavily traveled, like Quaker Bridge and Washington Pike, and they're too hard packed anyway. It's like running on asphalt anymore. Other roads I could actually swim down at this point, and other ones, you just don't bother them anymore. Like High Crossings Road, it's just one big mud hole after another. You have to wade through it. You can't even do like go-arounds unless you like going through stickers. So I'm kind of limited more and more where I run. And what the other guy just said about tire tracks everywhere, that's true. They're all over. I go to Jemima Mount every weekend. Every weekend there's new tracks up and down that mountain. And I don't understand that. I don't understand why that's allowed to happen. And you can get anywhere. With Google Maps, I can get on there. I plot out my routes by zooming in. I can put together a nice 25-mile loop, download it to my watch, it's GPS, and follow it through. And that's really, that's great for me, but it's also what is getting all these areas destroyed, I think. And I'm not really opposed to Jeeps being out there. It's chaos right now. We need a map.
Thank you. If I mispronounce these words, please. Jim or
Barnshaw?
Okay, Marshall.
My name is Jim Barnshaw, and I'm
member of PPA and serve on the Board of Trustees, but today I'm speaking as a private citizen. I do support the designation of appropriate and inappropriate routes for motor vehicles in Morton State Forest. Closing off certain roads to motor vehicles does not prevent access to any area, which can all still be reached by foot. But by limiting access, the damage to and destruction of roads and adjacent areas can be decreased significantly, and enforcement by park police can be more effective. Recently, on a trip through Wharton State Forest, I visited a pond that is dead because of inappropriate motor vehicle use for pleasure. This scar on Wharton State Forest will probably never recover. A recent visit to Jemima Mountain showed extensive gouging of the mountainsides by motor vehicles. With access limited to only hikers, this damage can be repaired. At a large savanna near the Wading River Natural Heritage Priority Site, I think I have that term right, what appeared to be a pristine area already showed early damage from motor vehicles driving into the shallow water and grasses. This area would benefit from decreased access. At another large savanna where access was limited to foot traffic, the area remains unharmed by human activities. I encourage regulations that permit full access by people on foot and limited access by motor vehicles. This will provide a degree of control that will permit some damaged areas to recover and others to remain whole. All parties should be able to agree that preserving the forest, streams, savannas, and ponds is necessary to sustain this area for the enjoyment of all. Thank you.
So I can bring the mic to you.
Good morning. My name is Rock Spano. I live in Jacobstown, New Jersey. I'm against road closures in Morton. Voters have settled with the DEP. We ask that the Pinelands Commission assist the DEP in making their decisions, but leave it up to the DEP. Thank you.
Jim Besky.
Hi, my name is Jim Belsky. I'm from South Brunswick, New Jersey. I'm asking that we have access to the trails there. I do participate in motorized motorcycle sport of enduro. We take a track of 6 inches wide. We are very respectful, and cutting off our access to this road here, I would not be in the Pinelands. I would be shut out if I'm just to go ahead and go by foot. So like Rocky had said prior, let the DEP be the main regulation body.
John Blanche. Sorry.
Hi, I'm John Blanty, and I've been a long-term resident of New Jersey. I also enjoy the Wharton State Forest, usually on 2 wheels. I've been doing so since the mid-'70s, and I'm against the latest map program that was introduced last fall, and also, along with Rocky, would like to let the DEP make that decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, my name's Randy DePasquale from Marlton, and I'm here today to urge the Commission to please implement a plan of controlled access for off-road vehicles in Wharton State Forest. I would like to briefly comment on the gentleman who said, please let the DEP be the regulators, because they proposed the map, and if they had their way, it already would be in place. So a bit has already been said about the obvious ecological impact of off-road vehicles out there, but there's also been a human impact as well. In that many opponents of the map are saying this will just cause an impediment to general public access, and especially for people with disabilities into the Pinelands. But the fact of the matter is the damage that's already out there is an impediment itself. There is an extensive network of damage and destruction on the roads that if you don't have a specially equipped vehicle, a purpose-built vehicle for it, there's some places you just can't go. As far as access for the disabled, I'll say that I consider myself a pretty able-bodied hiker, and time and again, when I'm hiking off-marked trails on these roads, I'm stopped in my tracks. I'm turned back, I'm rerouted, because you reach these points where there's such trenches, these immense pits that have been dug out over the years that are filled with either inches deep with mud or feet of stagnant water. As the one gentleman who runs said, you could swim down some of these roads at this point. You have no choice. You can't get around it on foot, and I'm not going to go create additional incursion around it. That's just going to exacerbate the problem. But somebody in a wheelchair is not going to get through that. Somebody on crutches, whatever, they're not going to get through it. There is damage that's already preventing people from accessing the pines, and the only way to stop it from going further, at least if we can't fix it, stop it from going further, is to implement controlled access for off-road vehicles. So thank you.
My name is Tom Haddon. I'm with the East Coast Enduro Association Legislative Group. And it's a surprise to myself and to probably everyone in the room, I'm going to agree with Dr. DeVito. The last summating point that you made was that the DEP is the correct place for this to occur. And it really is the correct place for this to occur. As you can see, this is an incredibly passionate and emotional issue that a lot of people feel very strongly about one way or the other. In 2 weeks' time, there's going to be a meeting at Batsta where the DEP is going to discuss further what they have been doing, what they've been up to since the stakeholder meetings ended last fall, and how they're going to be rolling out more enforcement. They need to bring the municipalities in, they need to bring the stakeholders in, so invitations have gone out. I'm guessing a lot of the people in this room have received them. I'm just here to say that I have actually helped close roads in Wharton State Forest. I have hung the signs. I have brought volunteers into the woods. Enduros are not run willy-nilly. We come to the commission, we come to the DEP, and we provide GPS maps of where we're going to go, and they approve those course routes. But what's important for us, and what's important for all the stakeholder groups, is subtly different. Each group has its own desire and its own needs. And the DEP realized that they had made a terrible mistake in not bringing all the groups in and discussing the particulars of the map. Now they are rectifying that. And I think it's wrong-headed of the commission to try and come in and take unilateral action. Because what's going to happen is we're going to still need to get a map from the DEP. It's part of their responsibility, and they're going to have to roll that out to all the state land. To have you guys come in and muddy the water now is going to do nothing but slow all that down. So I think the cooler heads in the room need to prevail, and we need to keep the conversation going, because we fought long and hard. All of us on both sides of this issue have fought way longer and way harder than any of us probably care to catalog, just looking at the impact on our own lives. I'm just urging the commission, please allow the DEP process to happen. These things, the time frames that you operate under, the DEP operates under, and that our lives operate under may not please everyone in the room, but they are in fact really making a dead level good effort to push this process forward so that it can work for everyone. There are things about the map that came out last summer, and unfortunately some of us have been involved with this since mid-July last summer, not last fall. So it's been going on for a long time, and it was a flawed map. I know that this process doesn't do anybody any good to have 70 people show up at a meeting where you guys have actual business to do. I'm just suggesting that you should be a stakeholder, you should be involved, you should contribute. Absolutely, we need your expertise in the room. But We can't have two separate tracks happening at the same time. It's a waste of all our resources. Thank you.
Emily Smith?
Yeah. I'm just kind of gonna like restate what's been said. I agree with everyone that's has kind of stood up for preservation of pine barrens. My name is Emily Smith. I've lived in Ocean View, New Jersey my entire life, and I'm in support of Ed Lloyd's plan to use the 2014 USGS topographic map to designate motor vehicle routes through Warren State Forest. It makes sense to me to use the most up-to-date system in order to protect the existing wetlands, ponds, and waterways from further abuse by ATVs. I hiked the Batona Trail 4 years ago in spring of 2014 and saw so much erosion and like the wide, deep artificial lakes left by these vehicles. It's honestly shocking for me to see so many wide, sandy, and expansive ATV trails crisscross the Batona Trail. I went out to enjoy and appreciate the natural beauty, and I have to say I was aghast and disgusted by the rampant degradation of the land these motor vehicles have caused. It makes me very disheartened to know that the situation is getting worse and worse. The people on these vehicles obviously don't care about protecting, preserving the natural habitat of South Jersey. I think they think the Pine Barrens is created as a personal ATV park just for them. It's not. They are loud and destructive, and they belong on roads and not traversing through the landscape that should be valued for its environmental integrity and serenity. I heard that there is 1,000 to 2,000 acres already damaged by these unauthorized vehicles, and honestly, it doesn't surprise me. As commissioners, it is your job to act on behalf of the Pine Barrens, and I hope that's what's done today. I would also like to add that I thru hiked the Appalachian Trail last year, and I do not remember witnessing any off-road vehicle erosion during my 2,200-mile journey. It seems ironic that I came across more off-road vehicle trails in the protected forests of Bass River, Wharton, and Brendenburn State Forest in South Jersey than during my 6-month-long trek across the length of 14 different states. It would be nice to see the same level of protection extended to the Pine Barrens as granted to the Appalachian Trail, as it does host vulnerable and endangered species endemic to South Jersey that is vitally threatened by many sides. Please save us the eyesores of this substantial ATV abuse and adopt Commissioner Lloyd's plan to use the 2014 maps to establish proper motor vehicle routes through Wharton State Forest.
Thank you. My name is Jack O'Connor. I live in Point Pleasant, New Jersey. I run a off-highway motorcycle training school and an eco tour company that goes through the Pine Barrens. I probably put about 30,000 miles on my motorcycle riding through the woods over the last couple of years. I just want to say that the first map plan was overwhelmingly rejected by the majority of the forest users, and to let the DEP make the decision. I've met with many of them, the stakeholders meetings, and one of the main issues was that they can't enforce what they have now. So you guys are proposing to put the map in, it's not going to be enforced. This gentleman here said that trucks are riding up and down Jemima Mound all the time. That's been illegal, closed for years, and it's still happening. So we need more enforcement before you can even put something like this in. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mary March. I'm from Camden County, New Jersey. And the thing I see today is that we're all passionate about our beautiful Pine Barrens. I have a four-wheel drive truck that I love to take to the pines and have picnics and run my dogs. I also have horses that I love to ride in the Pine Barrens. And there's come a time when I can't bring my horses or my trucks to certain places. I think that the New Jersey people love the Pine Barrens and want to protect them. I think that there are a lot of outside people from other states that come in and have jamborees, and they come and ruin our Pine Barrens. And I'd like to propose very expensive permits for these people if they want to come in, so that we can protect our forest. I know our forest is not replenishable, and there's no law against ignorance and stupidity, and there's no way we can protect against it. But maybe if they have a price to pay, they'll protect what we have. Thank you.
My name is Paul O'Neill from Southampton, New Jersey. We do have the maps that you can buy at Guidestone Village that have been going around since the 50s and the 40s, some of the geographical maps that you can buy at Guidestone Village. I'd like to see those roads stay open. Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Taylor from PSCNG. I just wanted to say that we have 153 miles of transmission right-of-way through the Pinelands. We work very hard with the Pinelands Commission and the DEP. We've spent over $2.5 million in repairs because of four-wheelers and monster trucks and whatnot, using our corridors for their convenience. The cost, the permitting has been a tremendous for the utility, and it actually goes down to the ratepayer at the end. You spend $2.5 million, somebody's got to pay for it. It's not coming out of my pocket, it's coming out of the ratepayer's pocket. We work very hard with New Jersey Fish and Wildlife. The Pinelands is a resource that New Jersey has, and we try to, not only our corridor is meant for electricity to get from point A to point B, but it also is a corridor for T&E species, vernal ponds, class 1 streams that are being destroyed. So I would urge, the commission and the DEP work together. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bob DeLita from Egg Harbor Township, New Jersey. Sorry. I knew you called me. So I've been enjoying the Pine Barrens for 40 years. Through hiked the Batona Trail on multiple occasions with Boy Scouts and by myself, the Mulligan River Trail, off trail, all over the Pine Barrens, mainly the Wharton State Forest. I've also through hiked the Appalachian Trail, and yeah, there are many places where that's crisscrossed with ruts. But so I think we're seeing extremes here. Right? We have folks who have done studies and research, and on one end we have extensive damage, and we have trucks that have been irresponsible, and that's got to stop. But I hope we're not swayed by people with an agenda who've done studies. The DEP has started a process. We worked hard together, and it's moving forward, and I think it's productive. And it's finding common ground, and I think that's what we need to do. We all want to protect the Pine Barrens. We all want to maintain access for responsible people. And we don't want responsible folks to lose the access because of the actions of some who've mistreated it. And that's going to stop. And it comes down to enforcement and education. And I hope we can focus with the DEP to continue that process so that we come to a common ground. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you for affording me the time to speak. My name is Joe Duval, and I'm a resident of Winslow Township, Camden County, which borders Wharton State Forest. I last spoke here in January. My lifelong connections to Wharton and my conservationist views which support responsible users of our forest, and my vehement opposition to those who damage our forest. I'm here today as I've learned the activists are again beating down your door trying to force this commission to make the DEP close Wharton roads. Shutting down over 50 50% of Wharton's roads won't stop those who damage our forests. What it will do is take away thousands of acres of access from Wharton's responsible users, the people who love our forests and what it offers. As in January, let me put the entire matter into proper perspective. Wharton consists of 122,880 acres. Wharton's 600 plus miles of roads plus a damaged area, most of which is on the roads, equals less than 1% of Wharton's total surface area. That leaves approximately 90% of forest which is untouched by vehicular travel, and less than 1/2 of 1% damaged area in the forest. By any standard, 99.5 is a pretty darn good grade. Imagine a young student receives a 99.5 on the test, then has a sport she loves taken away by her parents for not getting 100. To punish so many for the actions of the few is wrong by any measure. To do so little to stop the few who damage the forest at the expense of the good people by any measure is wrong. Proper enforcement in Wharton must take place to stop those who damage our forests. There are areas where I believe this commission could have a positive impact. The just scheduled DEP meeting on March 22nd for stakeholders, this commission could insist that DEP have the top brass, the leaders of the state park police, attend that meeting and finally give us direct information on how they plan to stop those who damage our forest. To date, the top brass has never shown their face at any of the meetings I have attended. They need to take an active role in this matter. Next, truth. I've been in meeting after meeting and listened to people, mostly activists, provide information that is less than accurate, half-truths, hyped, and many times flat out wrong. An example, at the Commission's January meeting, a lovely young lady from the Pinelands Preservation Alliance spoke water test she took from Wharton's waters. She expected the test from this pristine area to be really good. She was surprised when the readings came back really high, way off the charts of really bad stuff. She attributed the really high readings from point source pollution from vehicles. Now, it's common knowledge that really bad stuff can be absorbed through the skin if you splash on you, or you swim in it, ingest it, or you eat the animals that drink the really bad stuff. Again, she spoke nothing of contacting the proper officials with this dire information. But she did invite everyone to the Pinelands Preservation Alliance canoe rental to canoe Wharton's waterways. So I asked her, were the readings really high, way off the charts of really bad stuff or not? This commission should challenge those who make statements that could be questionable and ask the DEP to do the same. Officials should be held to an even higher standard of scrutiny. If we relegated people to only truthful and factual information, we would be well on our way to having a complete understanding of this issue and well on our way to resolve it. And we would clearly know that Wharton is not on the verge of imminent ruination as activists infer. Truth and factual information cannot be achieved with an ends justifies any means attitude. Activist groups have been purchased land across the street many times in part with taxpayer money. I'll be right at the end here. Last two things. If Wharton is still a pristine area, as evidenced by countless beautiful pictures, books, websites, and seen while we canoe its waterways, hike its trails, and drive its roads. What I'd like to leave you with is that the responsible users of Wharton State Parks have repeatedly said an area that is truly sensitive, they're open to a proper and fair criteria to protect specific areas and sensible conservation of Wharton. Blanket closures or roads is not reasonable or fair. Thank you.
I really hadn't planned on speaking today. My name is Perry Hodges. I live in Lakehurst. I grew up in Manchester. Lifelong resident, nearly 60 years accessing in the Pines. First, I'd like to say that the initial plan, the MAPS plan from Wharton was ill-conceived. It wasn't thought out well, and the public outcry brought that to an end. With reconsideration, there's a process now to correct some of the initial problems with that, and I do believe that DEP will solve that. I don't believe that the Pinelands Commission should step on their toes now. The DEP can solve the problem. I think that everyone in this room can pretty much agree that we're the passionate people. None of us are the problem. Some of us are retired, some of us have a day off. Whatever the reason you're here, a lot of the public cannot come to these meetings during the daytime, during the work week. there would be a lot more people that could speak if these meetings were more accessible. But please, I would urge that the commission not jump the gun. Don't take the responsibility away from the DEP. I'm a member of the Enduro community. I've been in the forest the majority of my life. My parents took me out in a pickup truck years ago, and I rode right along, and we always did. We ran our dogs, and we've had fun. I ride my bicycle, I ride my motorcycle. But just to reiterate, the majority of these people here and the people that we speak of and the people that we know are not the problem. The illegal users are the problem. Enforcement is the real issue. If the current rules and regulations could be enforced, many of these problems would go away. Unfortunately, in America, we have people who are just rule breakers, and they will not, they refuse to be regulated. And the issue really does come down to enforcement. Please let the DEP do their job. Thank you.
I'm here for a non-agenda item.
Okay, we'll hear from you later. Roy Howard.
Thank you. My name is Roy Howard. I live in Trenton, New Jersey, and I'm part of the off-road vehicle community, specifically the motorcycle enduro community. I'm a member of the East Coast Enduro Association, and I don't think I could say it any more eloquently than Tom Hayden, our legal representative from the East Coast Enduro Association, already stated it. Okay. We consider ourselves to be wardens of the forest. We respect the forest because we love it. It's what we do. But I was genuinely surprised by the outpouring, okay, and the diversity of the groups that came together at the town hall meetings, okay, to discuss the map plan. 7 communities passed resolutions and sent them to Trenton in opposition to the map plan. People do not want their access restricted to the forest. The problems that are being reiterated here today, okay, about damage in the forest, okay, it's already illegal, okay? This is an enforcement problem. Now, if the Pinelands Commission is willing to put up some money for the enforcement of these rules, jump in. Otherwise, it's a DEP issue. Let them roll out their plan on the 22nd and let's have a look at it.
Hi, my name is Dave Crane. I live in Medford Lakes, and I'm representing the Meteor Motorcycle Club. First of all, besides that, I've wandered around the woods for 50 years as a hunter, fisherman. I ride a dirt bike, so I have a real vested interest in what goes on in the Pinelands. First of all, I don't think there's anyone in here that doesn't recognize the fact that we need a plan. But I'm asking asking the Pinelands, don't reinvent the wheel. Don't arbitrarily do what DEP tried to do early in the year by instituting a map plan without serious input from the community. I think DEP is on the right track. I think we're going to see some results that will hopefully satisfy most people in controlling access to the forest. Again, I would like to emphasize that the problem is enforcement. You can ride down the roads a million times and see damage. Most of the time, this damage is caused by people who don't follow the rules. So let's have better enforcement. I urge you, however, to be a part of the solution. All of you have tremendous expertise. All of your staff have probably even more expertise. They certainly would be good contributors in establishing a plan that will protect the Pinelands and allow people to enjoy it every day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm to speak. Albert Horner, Metro Lakes, New Jersey. I'm a photographer and a blogger. I recently published a book of art photographs taken within the Pinelands National Reserve over a period of 9 years to illustrate the beauty of our pinelands. During my last 10.5 years of photographing the pinelands, I have witnessed continual destruction going on in our pinelands public lands caused by excessive and abusive use of off-road vehicles, 4x4 Jeep types, dirt bikes, and ATVs. I have blogged about this situation for years. A map delineating the appropriate roadways for motorized access is not only necessary for Wharton, but for all of the Pinelands public lands. Years of issuing permits to user groups for motorized vehicle events has helped many to become abusers instead of users. After permitted events, off-roaders from all over the Delaware Valley return to the Pinelands without permits and without supervision to challenge their off-road vehicles in our wetlands, ice age sand dunes, elevated areas, and roadways. I have no doubt that many of the off-road vehicles purchased in this area were purchased because the users truly believe that it's acceptable to use these vehicles in the Pinelands to challenge themselves in their vehicles. Esquire magazine recently ran an ad for Toyota Tacoma trucks to come to the New Jersey Pinelands because there were 500 miles of trails to challenge your vehicle. I'd like to know where they got that information. We should cease the practice of permitting motorized sports events in the Pinelands. Instead, we should put our efforts into protecting the last remaining wilderness we have in this state. Contrary to popular belief and recent statements, the off-road damage is not only being created by renegade youth, but by people of all ages, social and economic standings. They drive Hummers, FJ Toyotas, upscale Jeeps, none of which are inexpensive. There are hundreds of videos on YouTube and Facebook that support this claim. You must understand that these videos are produced by people that are challenging their vehicles as seen in the videos. I would like to invite the commissioners and the executive director on a tour of Wharton State Forest to demonstrate the need of a map to control motorized vehicle access in our Pinelands public lands. The trip will take no more than a couple of hours to fully demonstrate the need for the map to guide not only the visitors through the Pine Barrens, but ensure that the park police, emergency personnel, and Forest Service personnel can perform their jobs safely. Thank you.
Hello. First, I'd like to say that I took a day off of work to come and speak about this. This isn't my job. I'm not getting paid to talk here. I don't even like public speaking. But my roots grow deep in Wharton State Forest. My family homesteaded Greenback. They came there in a wagon. So I have a lot to state here. I've explored Wharton State Forest from horseback, foot, motor vehicles, motorcycles. And what that has done, the sense of exploration that's created in me instilled a great sense of responsibility and respect for that place. It's the one place where you can still go in this state and get away from people. I'm in fear of if we take that sense of exploration from upcoming generations, is there going to be people like me that care about this place? Again, this isn't my job. Nobody's paying me. I wish they were, but they're not. It's costing me money now. I've been to a lot of these meetings and spoke at quite a few of them. And really, that's all I got to say. I think also my understanding is that progress has been made with the way Wharton State Forest is being enforced now. So those are steps in the right direction. Let's stay on that path and work together, and we might get something done. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Kevin Broderick, Chesterfield, New Jersey. My family and I have been avid users and enjoyers of the Pine Barrens for 35 to 40 years at this point. Where I'm involved currently is through the Clementon Gun Club, which is a deer driving organization located in Acco, New Jersey. If you looked at what the map originally proposed, it would have eliminated at least 50% of the drives that we typically do. It would have eliminated all of the drives that we have set up and researched for our youth organizations. And this past year, we had 24 youth hunters, including 2 young women. And it was a good day. We invite people from other clubs to join us that can't join us during 6-day for whatever reason. But I think that, and it was my belief that the original map was overzealous in its reach, but that the current DEP process to bring stakeholders together and develop a plan that will satisfy most. Will it satisfy everybody? No, it shouldn't. But that process is ongoing. Pinelands Commission should be one of the stakeholders involved with their opinions and some of their expertise. And that process moves forward. I guess it's on the 22nd when DEP is going to lay out their proposed enforcement actions. And going through the meetings for the Pinelands Commission over the last couple of months, there's been some discussion about the plan or the map, but no specific angle of how they were going to approach it. And I know there was also some discussion relative to staff were going to look into the ability or to use the implementing legislation for the Pinelands as a means of closing the roads. I believe that would be a wrong approach, and that the correct way to approach the whole matter is to be a stakeholder through DEP with the other user groups and move forward from there as best we can. Again, not every party is going to be happy, and if we can get to that point, that's probably where we need to be. But thank you for the ability to come.
Chris, Jake?
Good morning. Chris Jage, resident of Hamilton, New Jersey, and I'm the Assistant Director for South Jersey for the New Jersey Conservation Foundation. Thank you for letting me speak. One, I just want to express a little bit of regret how the Pinelands Commission's role in this process is being relegated to that of stakeholder, bystander, or interested party, as opposed to the principal regulator for the land use activities of the Pinelands. You shouldn't be a stakeholder there. You should be very much deeply part of this process. That's why it was written into the CMP originally. I want to talk too about the issue of enforcement, which clearly this is an issue of enforcement. Details are important. As I mentioned previously in other meetings, in order to enforce any activity out in the forest, there needs to be established rules. Currently, the DEP's rules for motorized activity on roads is that you can only be on, quote, designated roads. Without a designation of roads, either on map in the field, there's no way to enforce anything with respect to that. More importantly, and this goes specifically to your role, is the impact to wetlands. I have in my hand there was a letter submitted to the Friends of Black Run. It's a local organization that's trying to put a trail on a preserve in Evesham Township. It's currently held up because of additional information the commission needs for a foot trail on a township park. The activities that are going on in the Wharton State Forest with motorized activity are orders of magnitude larger. So if the commission feels that there's more information and more work that needs to be done to place a foot trail, then I would argue that you would need a commensurate level of scrutiny on what's going to be motorized trails. The map that was proposed and all the roads that we have been able to map with our GIS expertise in our organization determined there's 530 linear roads, trails, fire cuts, all the things that we're all discussing. We all call them different things, but these are the linear segments that we're all discussing. 57% of them are either in wetlands transition areas, or they're inaccessible because you have to go through a wetland or wetland transition area to access them. So we all want to go to certain places, we all like to use certain roads, but if the commission allows for a road plan to proceed that allows for motor vehicle activity in these areas that damage vegetation and impact the hydrology of the area, that's arguably clearly in your wheelhouse and something that needs to be addressed and regulated. And this is in the MOA, albeit I'm understanding it's a lapsed MOA with the DEP with respect to their road maintenance, is that anytime they have to do any road maintenance in these regulated areas, they need to come to you. And in my 16 years of coming to these meetings, I haven't seen them here. So I think that is really where you need to focus your efforts of having whatever trails get and roads get approved, that they aren't the ones that impact wetlands and transition areas. Thank you.
Was that Charles?
That's getting closer.
Charles. Sorry. I got the Charles part. That's it.
Oh, we're not laughing all my time, that's good. Charles Hendrickson, New Jersey State Federation of Sportsmen Clubs. I'm opposed to you guys stepping in on this map issue. I think it needs to go through the channels that have already been set up, the stakeholder meetings, and the access is very important to the sportsmen. And we also happen to be one of the original conservation groups, started with Roosevelt. I think by airing this out and having these meetings, you're getting input from other people. A lot of guys bring up good points. The enforcement issue has been my problem with it from the beginning. You have rules in place to deal with these things, but they're not enforced. The park police, I don't know what they're doing. It's not a 9-to-5 job. If I know that the park police is going off at 5 o'clock, then 6 o'clock they have their runs. It's, it's an enforcement issue. It needs to be looked at from that point. And maybe the fines and confiscation needs to be in there to put an end to it. That's all I got for you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Jason Howell, Pinelands Preservation Alliance. First thing I want to say is this is the Pinelands Commission. The buck stops here. If the DEP did their job, we wouldn't have the vast damage that we see today. This is where they have already failed. Now, the upcoming meeting is to address enforcement only. And that's great. We need more enforcement, and they're doing that. But enforcement needs enforceable routes. And this is what your job should be, to provide those route designations so that enforcers, the park police, can actually accomplish their mission. As it stands now, there's no way they can access these wetland roads that you can swim down, canoe down. Now, that being said, I think we're in a great position here because all sides agree that there should be a designated map which designates which roads are suitable and are not suitable for motorized use. That's excellent, actually stands. Now, the difference seems to be that our side believes that the roads that are designated should be navigable and they should not traverse wetlands where the bulk of this damage is occurring. After consulting with the USGS last week, it is clear that the 2014 map is far superior to any older version. The USGS confirmed that the 2014 map creates routes of reliability. They documented these roads through TomTom's multi-net system, which used direct field surveys, mobile mapping bands, and aerial photographs. The older maps used data from 1957 and the 1927 data. This is just terribly outdated material. Surely, we would not ask our park police to rely on 6-year-old data for their enforcement. As a search and rescue volunteer myself, the most accurate and updated maps are highly important to us to do our job. And I would consider the new map an absolute necessity for public safety. The Forest Fire Service tells a story last year of a school bus, a class trip. who tried to traverse one of these roads as was directed by its GPS. The road was unsigned, unmarked, undesignated. Now, the school bus is quite long and is unable to make a K-turn on these narrow forest paths through the wetlands. It traversed many of these mud holes and became helplessly stuck. It took many hours for the park police and the Forest Fire Service to extract children and this bus from these vehicles. And if you add in temperature, which I just witnessed a month ago at 10 degrees, a vehicle was stuck, they parked this in the ambulance and tow truck. The park police couldn't even get down there, they had to wait for the tow truck. So, we're talking about public safety and about environmental preservation. Now, we just need to respect the forest, and we need to manage access for public safety or national heritage. And I think this Pinelands Commission, the bus stops here. I ask you to just roll and be strong, and let's get through this together. But we all agree we need a map. Thank you.
Georgina Shanley, Ocean City. I think I'll make it very short. Many of the speakers, including these two, Mr. Howe and this gentleman, I totally agree with, and Ms. Smith as well. The Pinelands is just being destroyed. There's no question about it. I took a guided tour about 2 weeks ago and went to one of the ponds that it's finished. Nothing can grow on it. You can see oil exploding on the top. And then there were ponds that were in the intermediate stage where there were some track marks going in. There were empty cans of soda on the side, and trees and shrubs all broken down. There's no doubt about it. What we're witnessing is a destruction of the Pinelands. And it is the obligation and the role of the Pinelands Commissioners to stand up and stop this. Why have anybody supposedly protecting, enhancing, and preserving the Pinelands when nothing is being done, or very little is being done, to stop this massive abuse and degradation of the Pinelands? There shouldn't be those huge vehicles romping through this very, very precious land. Even the Philadelphia Inquirer had an opinion this week, really criticizing the effectiveness of the Pinelands Commission in protecting the Pinelands. And here's a perfect opportunity for you to develop. I don't even like any of those big vehicles there, but I believe that Commissioner Lloyd has a resolution that he'd like to have passed with the 2014 maps that were, I believe, designed by the DEP. And I think that's the very least that could be done. Of course, enforcement is another matter that's very important, but I think you have to take your responsibility with whatever's on your plate, and your responsibility is to put an end to the degradation. They're in violation of the Comprehensive Management Plan, Highlands Protection Act, and it should be over. Thank you.
It's Steve Sinerky. I'm a born New Jersey, Ocean County resident. My wife and I also own property in the Pinelands. I think the map is too strict as it's proposed. I think that the DEP is on their way to making proper, timely adjustments. Everyone here is very passionate about this. I think the doctor brought up the current, the modern vehicles, these big monster trucks. they're most of the problem, if not all of it. I think that enforcement is the issue here, and I think that with, here we are in 2016, we could take advantage of certain items such as like duck cameras, certain things that wouldn't require a full-time, stressful police, high-dollar issue. You could, these guys come in, they all have license plates, they've got these big monster trucks. And no one has brought this point up that I'd like to make real quick. The New Jersey Motor Vehicle Inspection has gone from the strictest in the 50 states to the least. All they do is check their emissions. And these guys are rolling around with truck tires that you can put on tractors and plow fields with. But anyway, once again, I'd like to say I think the DEP is making steady progress. And I think that technology would allow us duck cameras and certain things where these big vehicles congregate and do their destruction. And it'd be just a simple matter of mailing out a ticket, just like when they blow a Easy Pass. You mail out a ticket, I'll see you in court. Is this your truck? Did you do this? Here's your fine. The word will spread and they'll stop coming. We'll find somewhere else to go. We love the forest, so it's dirt bike guys. We're very passionate. We care of the forest. And we'd hate to lose this. Thank you.
Thank you.
When Emil started speaking and he talked about the wildflowers that used to grow on the roads in the Pine Barrens, I completely forgot that ever existed. A friend of mine used to lead hikes down the roads and point out all the wildflowers on the roads. And we don't do them anymore because it's gone. It has been so long since there have been flowers in the roads that I completely forgot they ever existed, and that's a pity. It seems the Pineland Commission is a place to get involved in this. And Neil has documented, and I don't believe his science is incorrect, what we've already lost and cannot be reclaimed. It is gone. What is going to be gone, destruction. It's not a few bad people, it's continuous, and it just seems that this is the place to protect the Pine Barrens. There's too many of these vehicles, they're all over the place. It doesn't take long for them to destroy something, and I beseech you, please come down there and please protect it and let it remain, because right now, all I can see is it's going to go away if somebody doesn't do something.
Thank you.
Pass. And you said it right. I don't know. Last one you did good.
We have Tom Heaton again. Tom Heaton?
He was up already. He left.
Okay. Ryan Boboza?
Ryan Bobozo, resident of Pinelands Restoration Alliance. I'm going to talk on a couple points. First of all, I'd just like to mention that I spent on 2 separate occasions the past 8 days trying to review an application for the realignment of the Indian Cabin Road in Mullica Township. Unfortunately, I wasn't given an opportunity. I didn't get a response, and public comment on that is due today. So I just hope that the commission took some time looking at that application in respect to the 4 listed species that are known to occur in the area. In relation to Wharton, I'd like to say that I feel the commission does have a role here, specifically when we're talking about Pinelands designation. I'm not sure why the commission wouldn't want to take a leadership role and rather take a back seat to the DEP. I think you have the jurisdiction, you have the authority to designate roads, you have responsibility in the CMP to address wetlands and prevent adverse impacts, 9 of which are listed, 7 of which are applicable to off-road vehicle use. I think that it's something that should be addressed, especially since oftentimes the DEP has used reference to the CMP where it says there should have been a designation of roads prior to 1980. They looked for maps. Those maps apparently don't exist. They can't find them. So just because this should have been done 35 years ago is an excuse to not address it now. That being said, enforcement is an issue. I think Chris Jage said it perfectly, so I won't harp on that anymore. And then I just want to respond to the comment about women from PPA taking these water quality tests. No one at PPA is going to be taking water quality but me. We have 5 women on staff. None of them were involved with that. So if we want to talk about misinformation being perpetuated, you got a perfect example, from previous comments. So please consider your role. Please consider what you can do to kind of take a leadership role and press the DEP on their role as well in the state forest land.
My name is Jen Dixon. I'm with Open Trails, New Jersey. And there's several points. First off, Ryan, the person they were talking about was Margot, and she said she was a PPA member. So they kind of misconstrued PPA with that they work there. Okay, so just to clarify that, because I was here at that meeting, and it was Margot who stood up and said about the water quality. So.
But I don't work
She's
for
not-
PPA.
But you did mention the PPA, so the person probably only heard PPA. I know you're not, so I just want to clarify that. I'm not trying to fight and bicker, but, you know, you're having a war here, and the problem we're having is people feel that they're superior to one another. And the thing is, we're talking about ORV, everybody keeps saying ORV, off-road. These are roads. These are mapped roads that we're talking about. I don't understand where everybody's getting this idea that the quads that have been illegal, they're not being enforced because they can't chase them, because New Jersey has a no chase policy because if somebody crashes. Well, that's one of the biggest problems. Everybody here mentioned, not everybody, I should say, a majority of people mentioned about the quads and stuff going on back there. They are a major issue. I mean, there's been accidents left and right with them. So that's the enforcement part that we need. Nobody here mentioned maintenance. Every road, I don't care if it's blacktop, gravel, dirt, whatever, needs maintenance. Al mentioned 10.5 years that these roads have been going down. How long has our superintendent been in the DEP? Ever since then, the maintenance has gone away. I don't care if it's a budgetary issue or what. These roads have not been maintained. So the problem goes back to, if you don't maintain them, there's going to be bigger ruts, there's going to be bigger issues. You're going to have a bigger pothole people are going to get stuck in, and you're going to mess up your front end. It's going to happen the same thing on a dirt road than it is on a blacktop road. Okay, also, Mr. Lloyd, I appreciate that you want to step in. I think everybody needs to work together here. I mentioned before the last meeting that the way that the roads are being repaired, they're not being repaired in a proper manner. They need to be looked at. So, do I feel that you guys need to step in? Yes. To be able to watch what they're maintaining these roads with. But I think not only is the enforcement a major issue that we should allow the DEP to look at, but you, in the part for maintaining the roads, you could step in because some of the material that they're using is not up to standards. Now, when they go in and they do this forestry work, they're allowed to go through wetlands and everything to take down the trees. So, I mean, there's all kinds of clauses and outs of everything. And that's the same thing that people are gonna say with your jurisdiction and everything. I feel that it is important that the DEP does take the main stand because with the population, they were not transparent and they needed to let them handle part of this and see how it goes. I'll end there. I'll leave it official.
John Rudy Tabernacle. This entire group spent our entire fall, well, both sides of the issue, by the way, spent our entire fall working with the DEP after the map debacle through the stakeholder process to come up with a new approach to the map. And we're here about 2 weeks away from the reveal of that plan. So, as many others have said, at this point, I think the right thing to do is for the Pinelands Commission to defer to the DEP, allow them to roll out their plan, which includes enforcement and education, and then see what happens from there. There's also several mentions about the 2014 map as being used as a baseline for roads. I think you had received in excess of 300 written comments this week why that's the incorrect map for the baseline for roads and for state forests. I think you should take that into consideration if you do take future action. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank God I could hear you this time. With all the clapping, it was very difficult to hear you call because I don't think you have a very loud voice and neither do I. However, reiterating what I've said in the past, I'm a hiker, bicyclist, and a kayaker. I have driven my car to transport my kayak on a dirt road. I go slow. I am a poor person. I cannot afford to mess up my vehicle. In my opinion, I wish there weren't any motorized vehicles on the trails. I've had confrontations that have not been very pleasant. I also want to point out that the reason why the park police became an entity
I have the right word, and they're carrying guns now is because there was a confrontation up in a park up in North Jersey how many years ago. In addition, DEP is such a big organization, and their enforcement is not going to be available. It just isn't, it hasn't been. We keep hearing their budget cuts. So I don't expect our police to be enforcing what is going on in the woods. When my mother and father were young, just before the war, they were motorcyclists, and they used to go through those trails. But that was then, this is now. We have a highly densely populated state, and this area here is so important, and it's fragile. It needs to be protected. I don't know who's doing that, but somebody needs to. Thank you.
Clemente, Gary and Clemente.
Marian Clemente from Barnegat, and I'm a citizen of planet Earth. I decided I'm going to say that. I've signed that as my affiliation all the time. And contrary to what all of the folks that get up and talk about the DEP's responsibility, what they fail to understand that it's the Pinelands Commission's responsibility first. And it is up to them to preserve and protect this land that is federally protected. The DEP, what frequently happens at these meetings when there are new applications, et cetera, the developers, the BPU, all those folks, they go to the other agencies and get their permissions first before they come to the Pinelands Commission. So it puts the Pinelands Commission in a very difficult situation because everybody's saying, well, it's already been approved. If they had come here first, because they have the primary responsibility for the lands that are covered in this area that is federally protected. So it is their responsibility to preserve and protect this piece of land. Thank you. And I trust that you will do.
Bill Wolf, Ward 10. I agree with those comments. That was going to be my emphasis, that it is clearly the Pinelands Commission's responsibility. It is your obligation, your duty, your jurisdiction, your authority as a commission to tackle this issue. Last time I was here, we had the text from the CMP up on the screen so we could all see the language. And the way I read that language is that it was written in a way that the expectation was that there was going to be a transition between the existing users who were going to have to demonstrate, the burden was on the off-road and road motorized community to demonstrate, and I don't have the language in front of me, to demonstrate that the road was used for recreational purposes, and that the commission, the expectation was the commission was going to, in an interim way, there was going to be this kind of quasi-grandfathering, not formal grandfathering, but this kind of, we'll develop a plan and we'll close more roads. And it was not just roads, but it was areas. Now, I'm a planner. I spent 13 years of my career at DEP working on planning and regulation. And I understand the nature of a map, regulatory authority, and ability to enforce regulatory requirements. And what the PPA people are saying and what the NJCF people are saying is absolutely correct. You cannot have an enforceable regime without a map and a regulatory requirement and its inspection and compliance monitoring and enforcement program. That's all got to come together. So it should be driven by the commission. The commission should set the constraints for anything the DEP may want to do within their own little gambit of a state park. But there's a region, it's called the Pinelands, there's a management plan, it's called CMP, and there's a commission, it should. And that's the scheme that we need to look at. with respect to the gentleman, the photographer, who talked about he doesn't know where the information could be coming, somebody like one of the car manufacturers, Toyota. Well, I was up at Colliers Mills last week just to look at some of their land management practices, because I'm concerned that some of the DEP forest land management practices are being designed to cultivate bird habitat for hunters as opposed to ecological function. And I saw up there old rifle ranges with thousands of shotgun shells on the ground. I mean, hunters are the stewards of the forest. Bullshit, to put it mildly. But at any rate, there were roads closed there, and it seemed like there would be no way a mutterer would feel to go out onto a grassland habitat there and blitz a donut. It just seemed to me that there was an enforcement presence, that there was an expectation that you don't do that stuff. And there didn't seem to be any objection to road closures and gates and signs and everything at Colliers Mills, so why can't that happen further south? And finally, the point about the motorized vehicle thing is the DEP puts out an annual hunter's manual that describes the various regulations. The ads in that then are from things like the off-road vehicle community. So the DEP has institutional conflicts of interest with respect to money for hunting and fishing and off-road vehicles and all the other things on top of the political application of the administration to do DEP's job. So we all know what's going on at the state level, and don't, as the Philadelphia Inquirer editorial just editorialized very scathingly in criticism, don't kowtow and follow the trend line. Thank you.
Okay, that ends the list. Can I please ask that we hold it to the end?
I have to leave.
You have to leave. I have to.
Real quick.
Okay, come on up, Teresa.
Okay, I don't want to talk about ATVs. I want to ask what the commission did when you passed the resolution on Peg Leg Web. It wasn't in the packet, it wasn't out here, and I want to understand what you did.
We'll summarize it at the end. We'll give you a synopsis. But Teresa, I'm a firm believer in no Q&A during public comment. I've always been a big believer in no Q&A. That's the way our regs stated. And we'll try to get
Okay, I won't be here, and it won't be any good to say it next month. So, I'm hoping that you supported the forest management area. And if you did, and if that's what you voted, very good. Thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay.
Wait, I did sign the sheet that was out there. And I'm the very last person.
I signed it as well.
Okay, maybe I signed the wrong sheet again, but since I was also brought up in conversation by someone, I would like to address those comments.
Keep it real quick.
I can totally keep it real quick.
There were 3 minutes like everybody else.
All right.
Next public comment.
3 minutes like everybody else.
Thanks.
Agenda items that the commissioner released.
All right, thanks. All right, first of all, as been noted already, I'm not with the PPA as much as I value their work. I did not suggest using the new canoe livery business owned and operated by the PPA. I simply said I wish more folks had the opportunity and ability and desire to get out and find adventures on our Highlands waterways. The water tests I have, some of the water tests that I have, because I did not get all of the results back, all this information is absolutely nothing new. The USGS has been monitoring our waters for forever, since their institution. There's a lot of unregulated compounds in water. I suggest if you really want to see those, and I'm sure our elected officials and the DEP folks know exactly what is being pulled out of our water, but the problem is it's unregulated, okay? The USGS is a phenomenal database if you care to pester them about it. So and as far as I'm concerned, I was doing this on a volunteer basis. The company is a new company, Blue Ocean Sciences. Dr. Andrea Neal, also my husband, because I'm having problems with cloud, has just sent the email with the few results I have to Mr. Lobauer and Mr. Lloyd. Secondly, I have never inferred that the mutters alone were responsible for it. Its non-point solution is actually the correct term. Point source pollution is when you know where the point of pollution is coming from. Non-point source pollution is anything in the watershed. It can be cars off-road, it can be cars on-road, it can be the stuff you put on your lawn. That's non-point source pollution. So I am not pointing fingers, I'm just saying it's an additional load because it's non-point source pollution. All right, Just recently, the Jeep Jamboree, well, they're having an event apparently next weekend. There's going to be 200 whatever Jeeps going through there. I think that those permits are probably, I don't know. I wonder why that there's the feeling that there's not that much damage done by 200 Jeeps. And back to repairing roads. My friend and I got kind of yelled at, told the what for when we were riding our horses over Moore's Meadow Road. Why? Because Mr. Moore has to himself repair those roads. And our 2 horses, along with maybe the other 20 or 30 horses that go through that area, if that, cause an incredible amount of damage. So how can that be a costly thing for him? And it's a big issue. And then you say, oh, well, we need to repair the roads in Morton Forest. Well, with a $500,000 a year budget statewide for the state parks, how the heck can they repair them?
volunteered to.
You know what? Find the volunteers. I bet. You know what?
Here we are. We're right here.
Good, but I don't think that in the past, if that was such an easy fix, I don't think that we would have been dragging our heels on doing that. So, clearly there's things that need to be done. We've got precedent. Bureau of Land Management regulates what happens on their roadways, and the commission needs to do the same for our Pinelands. Thank you.
That is our policy. The speaker mentioned he said that some information was sent to me. I just wanted to I didn't receive it.
No, he just sent it. He just now, because I told you I said I was going to do it and I kind of forgot. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
We are going to have another public comment period. At this point, I'm going to close the on-agenda items. So we have a couple items. What's that? No, we're going to wait because I had this list, and we're running real short. We have 2 commissioners that are leaving at 12 o'clock. He's got to leave, and we have 2 items that are real
30 seconds.
We're going to go to a later public comment that everybody can talk about. So, I don't have this list. Okay. Susan, did you want to talk about ordinances not requiring commission action? Okay, does anybody have questions on the ordinances? Other items, this is for the policy.
Ryan, are you going to be here? Yeah. I'm concerned tonight there was a mix-up trying to get access to the public. We have no phones with
The MOA policy advisory committee and operating created in 2015 to review the long-term process that we've had for handling memorandum of understanding. So therefore, we gathered a group of people that included local officials, and some commissioners who were here, and the public. We heard from the public, staff, committee members, and the committee pretty much split the process. There are 2 things. One is a process that the staff is encouraged to follow, the staff and the commission, to get through the process of deciding on whether even we'll go ahead with an MOA. Then there is the second process, which is under the CMP, and is the question of whether a memorandum of understanding is, who's qualified, and those things. So in the process, we discussed it primarily, the role of the P&I committee in the process of along with allowing for the early involvement of the commission chair also, who had not been involved in the decision-making process early. The full commission was to decide whether there's going to be an MOA or not, which is not something we've done in the past. And the full commission should establish a schedule for the MOA. In other words, the full commission and the P&I committee are much more involved in this process than previously. We had some things that we wanted to talk about with the P&I committee regarding, most of which require changes in the plan. And they are things like determining who's eligible to come in and ask for a memorandum of understanding, or to define the public purpose of doing these, because they demand a public purpose. Define the equivalent protection, which is now very vague. It just says somewhere else in the plan will protect the equivalent of protections. And I think most important is the question of doing, to require an alternative analysis. We have not done that particularly, even though the plan says is that you don't grant an MOA unless there's no alternative. But we never defined when an alternative was worthy or not, depending, for instance, on cost and other requirements. And the other was the last question we want to take to the P&I committee is distinguishing between the standards for waivers and the standards for an MOA. I think most of you who have been involved in this process know that that's really not set forth in the CMP in a way that makes it possible to implement. So that's basically where we are with that. And we will make, as the plan review process goes forward, those last questions will be part of the CMP review.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on the material that was passed out on the policy?
I really want to thank the people who helped me. It was a good committee, and we worked hard. We may have only met 4 times, but the public got its chance, everybody got their chance to talk. It was a very good process.
So Candy, on the back, all those article numbers were things that we discussed and considered, but weren't actually all put into the resolution that we're going to.
Correct.
Right.
I just want to clarify, maybe Paul, you can even show. Candy mentioned, what we'd like you all to do today is to focus on the process, the first part of what Candy mentioned, and the changes that the committee recommended to the process. And she hit the highlights, but what happened to my slides?
Oh.
Yes. Just real quickly, so that we'd like to come away from this meeting with the Commission's agreement or endorsement of the revised process, so that we can post it and make it available to everybody. So there's just a couple slides here to emphasize the changes that were made. The process that the committee reviewed was written in 2008. So the committee structure was different back then. We went through the whole document, made sure it referenced the CFP policy and implementation committee. So that was done in a number of places to make sure it was clear that that's the first point where the applicant or public agency would go. And this is where you start to see the most significant change. The public agency would go to the P&I committee meeting, give a briefing or update on the proposal of the MOA that they're seeking. The committee would discuss and ask questions, and then when that process is done, executive director would brief the full commission at the next meeting. Again, of the full commission, brief the commission on the proposal, what the P&I committee discussed and recommended, and then it would be up to the commission to decide at that point. Before anything's drafted, before there's any agreement to proceed, it would be up to the commission to actually vote and decide whether to authorize the staff to move forward with the process and start to draft the agreement itself.
Yeah, I would just like to interject that was partly because we didn't want the staff doing a whole lot of work before the commission even A, knew what was happening, or B, was against it. So that's why that was changed.
And then at that same meeting, presumably if the commission were to decide, yes, let's authorize the staff to start working on the agreement, we think it's important, the committee felt it's very important that the commission should be involved in setting a schedule. We often run into these issues when talking with other agencies about agreements, and there's all kinds of deadlines that aren't the commission's deadlines, they're schedules and constraints that other agencies have. And that all needs to be taken into consideration, but that it's the commission that on the outside should set forth a reasonable schedule so that everyone knows what's expected and how things are going to proceed. So those are really the main changes. This is also a key one. We've always had this ability, or at least in recent years, when we work on an MOA, to ask the agency that we're doing the agreement with to provide an escrow that can be used to reimburse the staff for its time. That's now explicit in the revised process so that it will be clear when we hand it out and we post it on the website. People will understand that that is a possibility. We don't do it in every instance, but where it's necessary and we're going to be working on an agreement for quite a long time, it becomes an important factor. We wanted that to be explicit in the process.
Yeah, understanding that MOAs take a lot of staff.
So really, all the changes, although they're not extensive, these are the most important ones where you'll see these things now as a full commission, having a full discussion before the staff proceeds with drafting anything or getting too far down the path of working with the public agency.
Thank you.
So that's all I wanted to just thank you, Wayne.
Thank you.
Sure, we have Ed. Sue, or maybe this is actually for Stacy or Sean. They're asking us to adopt the policy changes today. And I gather that these are not part of the COP, it's not a regulation, it's a guidance
It's a
process
guidance
for us.
Yeah, we're just asking for your general endorsement. It's not a resolution. It's not something that's going to go into the CNP. It's just a process that we're going to, just like we have a lot of process guidance on the website for various types of applications.
How is it memorialized?
It's just always been a list.
I mean, it'll be attached to the minutes of this meeting, so it'll be clear that what it was you were discussing, and we will post it on the website with a revised date, so it'll be clear that this is the guidance that the commission has provided.
There is one there now.
Yeah.
This
Right
is
now, the
a revised-
2008 process is on the website, and so.
We're just bringing it up today.
No question, I just wanted to make a comment. Is that when I didn't have that committee, I asked Commissioner Ashman to chair it, and I wanted to personally publicly thank her for such a fantastic job. It took many months to go through all this and have this discussion and taking it with it. I also want to thank and name them publicly for the record. Mayor Chiarello, who's representing the Pinelands Municipal Council, Ernest Colwine for Ocean County. He's the solid waste recycling director. He volunteered time and he's here. Fred Akers, the Great Harbor Watershed Association, and we had two alternates also who attended the meetings and did take part in this discussion. And that was our own Commissioner Avery, but from the public, two other people, Tiffany Coviello from the Municipal Council and Arnold Fisher. So I just want to thank them very much for helping us.
You're politer than I am.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I did have something to add. I don't really have any concern with the changes to the process that are outlined here. I think they make it clearer for applicants. I did want to just say for the record that on item 7, where the decision process of going forward with an MOA comes to the full commission, I think the commission has to understand that there might not be a lot of detailed information available because the work hasn't been done. And by definition, these are complicated, out of the ordinary projects seeking an MOA. So I think we have to go into that. We have to recognize that this whole MOA process is designed to provide flexibility consistent with our standards to the degree that we can. But there have been, in my 20-some, 45 years, there have been applications that don't fit into the plan, but I think everybody in the commission recognizes they need to be done. And this was a way to accomplish that in a formal process. The other thing I just wanted to make sure is in number 8, where we have the escrow that allows for reimbursement of experts, we might need to rename it at the same time. Okay. But I just, that's my comments. I think Candy and the other members of the committee for the insights that they brought to the process. We'll discuss all the regulatory changes in due course.
That's a different thing.
I was really dovetailing right into Chairman Avery's comments about the number 8. So, well done. Thank you for reading my mind.
Okay, anybody else? So I guess we don't need a resolution, just a general consensus. I think everybody's on board. So obey it. Thank you, Candy.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Susan.
All right. Next, we're going to go to the Wharton State Forest issue. We're going to start rehashing it amongst the commissioners. So, Ed, you're up.
Yeah, well, I would ask, well, I don't know if I get the support of the commission, but, you know, I think it would be important that this juncture, you know, because we've heard a lot of this stuff here, you know, on both sides of the aisle. But I'd like to hear from our staff and what they think and where they think we should be going with this process. Whether it's designating the roads, which I have to be honest with you, I don't know if that is something that I would want to consider. I think that more important, I think we should be discussing areas of not only the Wharton State Forest, but all the state forests. So I'd like to hear from staff, and I don't know whether or not they can put something together for us for consideration at the April meeting or not. I'm hoping that we can get some guidance from the staff and the executive director on what their thoughts are on whatever they propose to me. That's what I'd like to hear.
I would point out that people have mentioned that DEP was having a meeting. I was contacted by DEP. I plan to attend that meeting, not necessarily as a stakeholder, but as representing the Pinelands Commission. But, you know, so we'll be able to report back on that. Also, since the last P&I meeting when this issue came up, I met with DEP, high level, just to sort of, you know, explain what some of the commissioners were talking about and where we were, and sort of discuss again with them what my understanding of what the CNP says and the authorities it gives us, and recognizing, as I mentioned at the last P&I meeting, that we need to, there's consultative processes in there, one with DEP and one with, I think it says the public interest, and other interested parties, that whatever we choose to do, we work with them on special areas that need to be protected or roads that they're opening or closing. We need to find those processes so that they will be in place and we can work with them. But I have met with them, and I will go to the meeting on the 22nd, so I'll be able to report back on whatever they talk about there.
Who did you meet with?
Which my understanding is going to focus on enforcement and maintenance and what they heard and where they plan to go on policies and type issues.
Nancy, will we be putting you on a bad spot to ask you to bring us something back at the next commission meeting, or is that too aggressive?
I don't think in the sort of bigger picture it's too aggressive, perhaps down in details might be, but, you know, we can.
I'm just looking for a thought process from
We've been
staff.
talking, yes, we've been talking.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So we have Candy.
I just want to comment a little bit. Our relationship with DEP in this regard. I think says that we will designate areas where motorized vehicles should be permitted. All over the Pinelands National Preserve. And DEP is required to milk those areas. And I think that we forget that in this case we are not stakeholders, we are regulators. Thanks.
Okay, Mark? I certainly agree with you, Commissioner. I know we're not stakeholders, but I wonder if any commissioners who might care to would be able to attend that meeting.
I have to check with DEP. I mean, it's an invitation-only meeting, so.
I understand that.
Stakeholders, and like I said, I'm not going as a stakeholder. I'm going because I met with DEP and said I wanted to be engaged as they proceeded forward, so I could report back to know what was going on.
I understand. I just wanted to express interest. I'd be very interested in attending that if commissioners are invited by the DEP to that meeting. And again, not as a stakeholder, but as an interested party.
I will.
Thank you.
They have to ask to go?
Beyond that, I wanted to concur with what Commissioner Ashman just said. I think it is clear, to me at least, that we as commissioners have the obligation under the CMP to determine the policy here. We're not the enforcers. That is the Department of Environmental Protection, and they do have to decide how they're going to go about enforcing it. But the comment was made by several members of the public that they have to have a policy in place to enforce. And right now there is no policy, there is no designation of roads that are suitable or not suitable for motorized vehicles. So I do think it is incumbent on us, particularly in view of the fact that we're now very well under notice from the public. And admittedly, that notice is varying. We're hearing different points. And we heard some contradictory inputs today. And we heard at one extreme that maybe 30% of sensitive areas have been destroyed. Maybe another 30% have been impacted. Another speaker said, well, it's 1% of the total area. Some speakers thought that it's off-road areas that have been damaged. Other speakers said, no, it's just roads. It's just a question of maintenance of the roads. I think it's incumbent upon us as commissioners in order to carry out our obligation on the CMP to familiarize ourselves with what the real conditions are at Wharton for a start. And as Commissioner Ashman points out, go beyond Wharton, but let's start at Wharton since that's the hot subject right now that the DEP is addressing. I think we need to go and take a look at it. And I know I want to thank the staff for setting up the tour of Wharton Forest for next week. I realize that not all commissioners can go. I've heard from a couple of commissioners that a weekday tour is a difficult thing for them to manage. I know most of us work and it is tough to get away on a weekday. I'm going to request that perhaps we could ask the superintendent of Wharton whether or not another tour could be arranged on a Saturday so that more commissioners could go. I think it's important that we take a look and see for ourselves what are the facts there and what should we be doing in response to that.
I've already talked to Wharton about weekends and they can do them, so if commissioners are interested on a weekend tour, let Jess know and I can, it would be within the next 2 weeks or so.
Great.
As the weather gets warmer, they get busier.
Right.
But yeah, so they are available on weekends, so we can do that. So just let Jess know if you'd be interested in that, and then I'll get dates.
I encourage my fellow commissioners, please contact us and take it.
Thank you for making that request.
Thank you. I just have this huge one on both sides. I'd like to first thank everybody for coming out today and sharing your views with us. I think that this is a forum where we want to hear the concerns about the Pinelands. And one of the things I heard today was that there's nobody here that doesn't want to protect the Pinelands, and I don't think there's anybody this dais that doesn't want to protect the Pinelands either. And so we have that common goal that we need to pursue. I'm shocked and upset about the damage that I've heard is occurring in the Pinelands, and I feel it is both our responsibility and our duty to try to protect the Pinelands in any way we can. I think we have the authority and the responsibility, frankly, and the CMP to do that. I'm happy to work with DEP on this and encouraged by the meeting that's coming up on the 22nd. I hope that some commissioners can attend. I think that would be useful. Our CMP calls for us to designate areas that will be protected in the Pinelands. And I've drafted a resolution that some people mentioned to try to begin to address this under the CMP. And the real challenge has been, I think we need to develop a map. I think I agree with those who feel enforceability is important, but you can't enforce something if we don't have a rule. And we don't have a rule right now. So we need a map to enforce. I proposed, because I was advised that it was the best thing to do, the 2014 USGS maps. I've heard that they may not be the best maps. And I'm not wedded to any map. I just want all of us to agree on a map where we say, these are the places we all can go in the Pinelands, and these are the places we all agree we're not going to go because we want to protect them. And I think we need to reach that, and I think the only way to reach it is a map. I heard somebody in the public say that there have been 300 written comments against the 2014 USGS maps. I haven't seen those. I'd like to see them. I have heard their concerns with them, but I haven't seen any of those written comments, and I'd like to see them. I haven't, as far as I'm aware, no one that I'm aware of is saying we should close roads. I think maybe one of the things where I at least start is, let's designate the roads where we all agree people can go. And at the same time, that means either explicitly or implicitly, we're going to designate the areas that we want to protect and that we don't expect motorized vehicles to go. So I'd like us to work together. I think the Pinelands Commission does have a role. My understanding of the meeting with DEP on the 22nd is, as has been said, is to look at enforcement and maintenance, but I think we need something to enforce. So I think we all need to work toward a map. And I'd like to hear public input about what map you would all support and want to see as the map that you're going to agree to. Thank you. Great.
I've learned more from the public over the last three meetings that the public commented about the map and off-road vehicles than I have anywhere else. And my point of view is this has to be managed, and it's essential that the public have access to Oregon State forests as well as all the other ecological areas in the Pinelands. But they can't be destroyed. They're there to be appreciated by us and future generations. So I think it's the Commission's responsibility to do that. And that's why I think we're more than just stakeholders. So we've heard about policy setting. I think we do need to set a policy to protect those areas, but we also can't. It's hard for us to enforce those policies, so we have to work together with DEP. I also heard that the damage is only about 1% of Oregon State Forest, but that 1% happens to be the 10%, which is the most fragile areas, from what I can understand. I haven't been there to see it, but only 10% of the ecological areas of the Pinelands approximately is where the wetlands are, where all the T&E species are. So that 1% might have much more consequence than it seems. I also heard about, someone said that in 2 weeks there would be a map that would be released from the DEP. I think I heard that, so if there's any information on that, I'd love to hear about whether they are going to release that at some point, because when the Assistant Commissioner was here a few weeks ago, he said there really was no timetable, and I was just wondering whether there was a timetable at this point. I thank Ed for asking staff to come up with some ideas. I mean, we've been really getting your information from the public, which is great. Public comment is wonderful. But I think we need to see what our options are, see what role we can play in this, and I look forward to the April meeting, seeing that report. So, thank you. Anybody else? Sure.
Thank you. I'd too like to thank the public for providing us with some information. We talk about both sides. I think it's all one side. This is one room. And I think everyone has a common goal. Some are on the extreme end of either side of that goal. But I think that we as a commission, I'm new to this commission, so a map was presented. A lot of people, there was a lot of outrage from what I understand. And it seems like they brought stakeholders into a room to try to work it out. And that process, it's in process right now. I don't think us jumping in right now will change any of that. Let's let that process go. Let's let the people in the room who can give us some information, and then we move from there. I've been on the sand roads. My truck did get stuck in one of those giant holes heading through. So I understand that some things that we can control is the maintenance and the enforcement. Those are key things. So we're going to need a commitment when this is all said and done from the DEP. There's going to be enforcement. There's going to be maintenance, which becomes a lot of problematic with budgets. Okay, so I would like to do a tour on a weekend if possible to see the specific areas that are mentioned here, the extreme damage. And there should be a map, there should be something that says where you can go and can't go, simple as that. And we need to make sure that we protect the interests of the finalists.
I just have a very brief comment. In any discussions going forward, I'm hoping that those in the room, as you suggest, are discussing the restoration of the damaged wetlands, and that any violators pay for that. That's going forward down the line. It must be discussed.
I just wanted to ask the staff a question. Would it be possible for the science office and everybody on the planet to designate the areas where motorized vehicles shouldn't go in the Morton State Forest in particular?
Yes.
He's
smiling.
John's not allowed to talk. John, no, this is Chief Science, and I had preliminarily started discussing this. And yes, we can, not all at once.
No, that's why I said Morton.
And even not just all Morton at once. It's big, but, you know, some of the things we were talking about is off the top of his head, John and the members of the science office who are constantly out can tick off areas that they know of. They encounter activities going on when they're out in the field doing sampling. They come across people in places where they should not be doing things they should not be doing. So, yes, we can. No, not all at once when we show you every area, but without having lots of discussion with staff, to me, that's an ongoing relationship we have.
Would it be useful if some of the people who have spoken here who are qualified could find those areas?
And we have talked
Get
about
all
that.
this out?
We have talked about that as well, you know, and how would we vet those? And yes, so those are things we've already been talking about, you know, and how you vet those and which ones you can just, you know, are they certified? Yes, absolutely. Those are all the kinds of things we're talking about.
Because it'd be, not the Morton is small, but at least it's contained in some borders, and we could start there. Thank you.
So that would all be part of our discussion.
Going forward.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If I could follow up on that, I don't know what capabilities we have in-house, but I'd like to know if you have to look into this and then get back. I'd appreciate it. But I know that back in the state they have the ability to generate maps, topographical maps where they can overlay different types of area on the map. And I'm wondering if we could ourselves, using the assistance of the state, generate a topographical map of the state forest showing, say, where the wetlands are, where any heritage areas are, sensitive areas, things like that, so that we can then see, okay, where do the roads, what roads cross through these or come near them that might help us talking about road regulation.
Let me just comment on the roads. The roads are fine. The 2014 USGS maps are based on commercial sources. In 2010, they went away from their historic way of going out and mapping things by want to drive in the Ward State Forest with the school bus, use the 2014 map.
Okay.
The guy at USGS told me, he said, if you want to bushwhack, use a map before 2010.
Okay. So what about those other features, like a wet, can we
A lot of the
show
features are
wetland?
available from DEP.
Yeah.
They don't have a good route map. They told me that. That's something that they're looking at this year sometime, a better route map. So I think there are GIS maps that can do some of that that you're talking about. But the roads aren't going to be very good. No matter what you use, it's going to cause problems.
I see.
But it would be good for us to identify areas. That it would be good for, to start to focus in. We have criteria in the CMP for the areas we can designate, and they're pretty broad. It covers most of the things, we would want to. I think for that, we could. I don't know how big an endeavor that is, so I'm backpedaling as soon as I said it, but I think that's an easier lift for us than trying to do everything.
That would be
Yes.
helpful if you can.
Once started using what science did, the ecological integrity assessment maps. What happens is reservation area and forest area are all high integrity. There's very little distinction between them. So, yeah, they're all high integrity, so that perhaps not as helpful.
I have a point I'd like to make. The questions are going to be addressed to Sean and Stacy. Once we finally get a map that we can all agree on, it's still not going to mean anything unless we have teeth. So find out, because when I tried to look up the fines, it looked like they were blanket $71. They were very meaningful fines. How could we petition DEP to make it serious? Confiscation of vehicle, heavy fines. Where if you were able to smoke out one or two people on a camera late at night, and you got their license plate, they get a confiscated vehicle, high-end vehicle, Hummer, Jeep. And I think that's got teeth and that's got substance. Everything else we're doing is going to end up wrong. Once we find a map, they're still going to go out at midnight and drink and still do the same things. We're going to have a map and then what?
Oh, my suggestion is let's raise that at the meeting on the 22nd. I understand it's an enforcement meeting. Let's talk about that as an enforcement meeting. I think that makes a lot of sense. You're right. We don't have enforcement power. So DEP's got the enforcement power, and so that may be input from the Pinelands Commission to DEP at this meeting.
Can we find out what the fines are presently? I think they're really, really small.
Yeah.
And I couldn't, when I tried to look it up, it just was, I didn't realize it.
Chairman, I'm sorry. Can we also add on to that? I think one gentleman brought up a really good point about the duck cameras.
Yes.
If we could bring that up as part of the enforcement.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I thought that was terrific.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, looking at YouTube, some of these vehicles going through the Pine Barrens, and I don't know if they were reported or not, but they did have a copy of a ticket they received from Fish and Wildlife, and the fine was $56. I don't know if that's the current fine, but that was what was on there. But I would agree that if there isn't a way to deal with enforcement, all you're doing is passing a field goal resolution. Commissioner Green sits with me on the Ocean County Natural Lands Trust. We purchased some 15,000 acres since it started in 1998. Our properties have problems more with improper activities like underage drinking and illegal dumping. But it is very difficult to control some of these off-road vehicles. We have put up gates to restrict access where dumping was a persistent problem. The gate didn't last a day. And there are various ways that you can use to restrict certain types of vehicles, but these big trucks and the quads, if you put up a berm to stop a quad, it just becomes a joke. It's a very hard to sympathize with DEP, and I'm sure that they're not happy about the destruction that's occurring on the taxpayers' land that they're charged with protecting. So I think that a key part of this is how it gets enforced. And And I think we need to know that, and I'd be interested in what ideas that they have coming in. And I would also agree that any road deteriorates if it's not maintained. If you don't go out and run a grader around it or something, you're gonna have potholes. All you have to do is look at our driveway.
Okay, anybody else?
Nancy, can we start the process of identifying areas, at the next meeting, just if you came with a half dozen, just to get us started? And I agree with you, we can't do it all at once, but if we start,
Can you give me our top 10?
yeah, that would be
Maybe our top
exactly,
20?
whatever.
Right, yes.
Yeah, that would be good, thank you.
Yes.
The other thing I wanted to mention, and I'm sure that Nancy will agree, that none of this, I don't think, is fit into our work plan for this year. So you just we have to recognize that the more we tell the staff to do, the less that what we were going to do gets done this year. And
Decide what we were going to do.
I thought we did decide what we were going to do.
But yes.
And the other thing is that, the designating areas and so forth, as I read the plan under Article 3 or whatever it is of the recreation, requires consultation with DEP, so.
And others.
And others. So, that process has already started, I think, with the outreach that we've heard from the public here and the stakeholders that have taken time to come.
Yes.
But we still need to talk to DEP. The other interesting thing is Article 2 talks about all publicly owned land. Forget, there's an awful lot of municipal and county and school board and land out there that I'm not sure we want to address right away. And other state forests, double trouble, any number.
I think we have a couple commissioners that are going to.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Thank you. All right, so Nancy, to recap. You're Larry over some maps and some. When you go to the DEP, we're going to talk about raising the fines to be serious.
Enforcement, we're going to listen to what they say, we're going to tell them our concerns about enforcement.
And Larry's going to do a couple overlays. Okay. So is there any other discussion?
Let me just say that any place we have mapped out where the wetlands are, and certainly every wetland needs to be protected, There should be restrictions into, if the roads are there, they're there, but you need to stay on them. That's where most of the species are at in wetlands. And along with that, the stream corridors. When we have erosion there, that's a problem. It faces the ecology in the area. So it's pretty easy, to start with just taking a look at the wetlands. So I look forward to going out and working on, is that Tuesday or Wednesday? Tuesday. So that's great. But I just think that, we can't protect the ecology of the pine in our state forest where it can be protected. Thank you. Anybody else?
Not to be a dead horse. I can't imagine a more critical function that we have before us. This really isn't, in all deference to you, Commissioner Area. To say this would be feel good, I really disagree. I think it's up to us to create the tool that DEP needs in order to do enforcement. Whatever they're planning to do, whatever devices they're going to use, whether it be these duck cameras or whether they're going to create special procedures to try to do more enforcement, that's up to them. We have to lay the groundwork for them and tell them what's important to us. And I agree with you also that it goes well beyond Morton State Forest. Morton State Forest is large enough, but it covers a little pilot. You've got to start somewhere. We've got to look at this and see if we can come up with a model, a reasonable model that maybe then could apply to Brandon Burn, could apply. I've heard there's damage now behind White Spot that is also our responsibility. That yes, we'll have to work at as well. But we've got to start somewhere got to look at this and give them the tools that they need so that they can then follow through on their enforcement function. So, and thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay, yes, Al.
Could I have last word? I appreciate that, Mark, and I didn't mean, my comment is based on the fact that I assume the DEP already has regulations that restricts the areas, that restricts the types of activities that in the areas that are being destroyed. And unless we can figure out a way to really assist them, as you suggest, additional enforcement or so forth, I don't know how designating on a map does anything more than what they should be doing already, is I think my point, or they already have the authority to do. But as it comes back to enforcement, in my view. Thank you.
Commissioner Avery, you mentioned roads, maintaining roads a while back, and I'm just curious, when you have a government entity that is responsible for maintaining roads and they don't have enough money to maintain roads, what happens to those roads?
They don't get maintained.
I mean, like with bridges, when they fall down, you can't go over the bridges anymore. So I think there's a financial aspect to this. I mean, how much money is there available to maintain the roads through our state parks? If you can't maintain the roads, then how can you keep them open? I'm not an advocate of closing a lot of roads either. As I've said, I'm for access, but when the roads are in such deplorable shape and people are getting stuck and it could be a health and safety issue, then what do you do? So finances like with enforcement have to be something like that.
If you own the road and you open it to the traveling public, you should maintain it. It's not the traffic. That was my view when I was working.
You've driven to go to New Jersey, haven't you? We're not doing it. We're not doing it on our public roads, and we're certainly not doing it in our state parks. I'm not sure what the answer is, but I think that's beyond our ability. Alan, I think though, I don't think DEP does have resources right now. I think that's why they need a map from us.
If that's the case, then these guys stand corrected, but I don't think that they do. I would hope that they do.
I think they have the authority to put in place some protection here. My sense is they haven't done it.
But somehow they're issuing tickets, so they must have some authority to do something.
If those tickets are enforceable. Start confiscating vehicles, you can bet those are going to be challenged if you don't have the right rules in place.
Yes, we're doing that. All right, at this point, we're going to go to the second public forum. We don't have a sign-in list on this one, so I'll just get a show of hands. And Jess, can you do the 3-minute? Worked out good. This lady right in the front.
Hi, my name is Corey Bishop. I'm a Jersey girl, born and raised. I recently moved to Egg Harbor City, which is near Wharton State Forest. Family's a bunch of environmentalists and outdoors. My sister has hiked the Appalachian Trail, kept her a little underweight for a bit. I think we all really need access, but I mean, everyone needs access. And if there's people in these giant trucks destroying the roads, those of us trying to walk can't go on them. If they're destroying the walking trails, we can't use them. I mean, this idea of enforcement, we're not enforcing things. There needs to be laws to be enforced. The idea that it's silly to make laws because they're not going to be enforced, it's like advocating anarchy, that we shouldn't make murder illegal because people will still murder. I was lucky to get to have a tour recently of some of the damaged lands, and it's just, I had to cut the tour short myself because I got so sick from riding through these massive holes. There were ponds that were completely void of life. They looked like puddles, giant puddles. The animal life can't survive with water like that. It's not that it's just a small percentage of the land, but it's the water sources. Sure, the trees around them might be fine, but if the animals can't get to the water, if the plant life can't grow for the animals to eat, it's devastated. It's sad. So I hope you guys will protect it.
Thank you.
Mary Ann Clementi from Barnegat.
citizen of planet Earth. First, to the back and forth on Avery and Commissioner Avery and Lobau. Can't put the cart before the horse, and enforcement comes after what the Pinelands Commission is tasked to do. So that's what I have to say on that. The other thing, Commissioner Silla indicated that he's new, and he is new, and we welcomed him last meeting to the Pinelands Commission. But I encourage you to listen to what the seasoned commissioners have to offer in terms of their experience. And the Pinelands Commission is in place to preserve and protect the pinelands. The DEP needs to enforce the regulations the Pinelands comes up with. So it's not the DEP's priority first. So I'm hoping to listen to what so many of the commissioners had to say today about that. And on that note also, I'm really disappointed that so many of the off-road and on-road proponents of this activity have left that didn't benefit from the comments that the commission had, even though the continued discussion of motorized vehicle use in the Wharton State Forest was below that on the comments on the agenda part. So if you're in it to complain about it, then stay and listen to all sides of the argument, especially from the group that is responsible for the protection of it, of the pinelands. And that just goes to the general apathy that there is in this country around public involvement. I have one other point, if I can read my notes. Commissioners' views, okay. Also, I have a question that relates to the pipeline and the CMP review that happened, and how we wanted further review and changes to the CMP that allows the executive director to make decisions on issues of such magnitude as the South Jersey gas pipeline. Has anything been done on the commission is the one that's charged with preserving and protecting, and they should be the ones to make those decisions. Has anything been done on that regard?
Mary Ann, we don't do Q&A at the end. If you have a question, please get it to Paul or Nancy, and we'll get.
Well, my asking it here, doesn't that count?
No, this is public comment. It's stipulated on the agenda. I'm a big believer, public comment is public comment. So thank you for your comments, and if you could leave your.
Well, I'm asking the question on the record, so can I?
We'll get that to you if you give us your email address, and Paul or Nancy can get that to you.
Okay.
Thank you. Bill?
I know.
Thank you. I want to make a couple quick points. I think Chairman Lobauer has the relationship between the planning process and the role of the commission and the DEP perfect. It's absolutely right. Commissioner Cricket, with respect to if we can't enforce protections of the critical natural resources here, where can. And the extended destruction I have personally witnessed. I've done the tour. I spent 5 hours in the woods. Believe me, and I photographed it. Believe me, it's severe. I think you've seen some photos. I encourage you to do the tour. With respect to, I'm not familiar with what the staff, I'm assuming the staff has expertise in GIS, but I don't know what your hardware would allow, but I am very familiar with what the DEP's GIS capabilities are and what their data layers are. And it is not a resource-intensive exercise to generate GIS maps of the criteria that are in your own CMP. Let's get back to the CMP here. In addition to talking about the role of the commission with respect to designating roles, designating roads in areas that are unsuitable, there are specific criteria in your CMP that you should you should adopt as the criteria under which the DEP would then define road network that would impinge upon those resources. And it would not only be roads going through the resources, it would be roads that are adjacent to and allow access to resources. Because I was on roads that were adjacent to huge meadows that they had just blasted through. So the road in proximity to the resource needs to be considered. And there need to be closures and barriers. It's not just to put a camera in the woods and, you know, and we'll get these bad guys. It's something that's very significant. And my final remark, and I'm trying to find a delicate way, and I'm not a delicate guy, I'm trying to say this, but you have the Philadelphia Inquirer this week put out an editorial that I know hurt everybody's feelings, including my own, because it's, you know, I participated in the discrediting process where they criticized the fact that they called you, that you had abdicated your role, that you had become ineffective, and that you looked the other way as the executive director usurped your authority. And we had some discussion earlier today, just earlier, that illustrates that problem, of how hard it's going to be to claw back your legitimate policymaking role from this staff. So I would urge you to stay on top of that issue. I'm very glad to hear the conversation finally coming out. And I would ask the question, and I'll put it in writing, I guess, is this March 22nd DEP meeting, is it open to the public, or is it by invitation only?
By invitation.
And are commissioners invited? That's pretty extreme in my view. That's extreme. And the other thing is, there was testimony from people that are under this impression that the DEP is putting out a map at this meeting. That is not true. It is an enforcement meeting. They have withdrawn from this whole concept of a map, and they're running the wrong way as fast as they can. So again, you need to do your job. Thank you very much.
Chris?
Thank you, Chris J. New Jersey Conservation Foundation. To hopefully assist in the discussion about some of the information that's available and its relative ease of use. With respect to the road network, the DEP, as part of the process of developing the original Worth map, spent at least 2 years field GPSing everything from the blacktop roads, single track trails. So the DEP has all of that data with 7 to 10 foot spatial accuracy available. So I would suspect that they would be able to share that with you if you're looking at using that road network as a basis of analysis. As I mentioned, our New Jersey Conservation Foundation, with one GIS person, was able to do that analysis. We actually had to take the physical map and digitize it because we didn't have the digital data compared to the DEP's existing wetlands data. Because we just did the wetlands analysis. We didn't go that extra step in looking at T&E species and all that sort of thing. Because you're starting with the regulatory space and the wetlands, it was an afternoon's worth of work. But that's what it is. The one other thing I wanted to mention about this, it can't be understated that there's talk about there's our rules out there, and that there's permits tickets being written. From everything I've talked to law enforcement and Forest Fire Service out in the forest, those tickets are drinking, they are egregious violations in wetlands, and other activity that's basic law enforcement. What's not happening is the fact, as I mentioned, the statement in the legislation and in the regulations say designated roads. So if there's nothing that's designated, it's hard to enforce against that. And state park police have said that they informally, but this is essentially their MO, is that we're not enforcing where people are, we're enforcing what they're doing. Well, they need to enforce both, but they can't do the former unless they do have a designation. So whether that designation comes from the commission or whether the DEP does it as part of that process, it almost doesn't matter. But unless there's something designated legally, there's nothing you can do if someone's on a road and not doing anything else wrong other than just being on a road that otherwise would not be designated for vehicle travel. Thank you.
This gentleman in the back.
number 2.
The blue shirt.
Michael Tam. I resent the 3-minute rule. I think it's wrong. It doesn't achieve anything at all. And I feel that any member of the board, when you're appointed or you go for an elected office, that your time is the public's time. And I don't see where it should be 3 minutes. You take your time in explaining things. Many times members ramble on, which is fine, but make it fair. The democratic process is town meetings. And without town meetings, you wouldn't be here today. And the last meeting was a disgrace, I feel. You had an individual, a gentleman got up and he was trying to present something. He traveled here and he wanted to put his view across. The chairperson was very dismissive and made him very jittery. I feel the chairperson should have tried to help him along and show some compassion. It wasn't done. And that's not the way to run a meeting. He went out of this room with a bad taste in his mouth for every board member sitting here, which is unfair to the board members that were sitting here because of the action of the chairperson. That's not right. The same way the executive director with the pipeline certification business that was so quick. I remember Terry Moore years ago, and I dealt with Terry back in '85. He would take his time with things. He would consult his staff. His staff was very important to the director. He wouldn't make a move without consulting his staff and taking time and getting reviews. That's the way it should be. There's no sense in having a staff if they're not going to be consulted and listened to. And this is what it should be. But I think an apology from that chairperson last month should be sent to that individual apologizing to him for the actions that were taking place. I feel it's a disgrace. People get up here, they're not public speakers, but they should be given the courtesy to be able to give their point across, whether it takes 3 minutes or 10 minutes. The other thing is, I believe that the solicitor, who is one of the most important individuals in this room, should be sitting next to the chairperson, and the executive director should be sitting next to the chairperson. That's the focal point of this meeting when it takes place. People look at it that way, and not only that, but the public will be able to understand these individuals a lot better if they were sitting right there in that one row. And that's the way it should be. It's a little more efficient and whatever have you. One other thing. The Pinelands Comprehensive Management Plan. I believe that every board member sitting here today should take time over the next few weeks or the month to review it. It was how it was developed and why it was developed and what's in it. I know in water quality it has 0 tolerance. You tell me how the present activities in the Pinelands that you're going to be allowing are going to allow for 0 tolerance on water quality in the future. It doesn't add up. You've got to read that comprehensive management plan and why it was put into place in 1980 and the 3 or 4 years it took to put it in place. It's very important.
Thank you, sir. Could you wrap it up?
And there's one other thing. Everybody pledges allegiance to the flag when they get up here, but then you turn around and you sit down, and I don't think people realize what it means. You wouldn't have the 3-minute rule if you knew what that meant.
Thank you, sir.
Georgina Shanley, I agree with this gentleman. I think one of the great public goods that Mr. Laubauer did while he was chair was he allowed discussion, and he allowed people to really express themselves and didn't cut them off in mid-sentence. And I think that that's something we should really emulate for the common good. And also, Ms. Clementi's question, it's very harsh
what is she supposed to do now? Give her email to somebody to get back? I mean, what are we living in? Even in the most hokey town in New Jersey, if somebody asks a question, it's answered. It may not be answered during the agenda time, but it's answered at the end. And that's another thing that the ex-chair was very capable of doing. I think the elephant in the room right now is the frickin' pipelines that are going to go through the Pinelands. You know, we're seeing destruction from all sides. Just with the truckers and mudders, whatever it is. And also the pipelines, 2 huge transmission pipelines through the Pinelands. And on March 18th, the BPU is going to meet about the natural gas pipeline. And that is something that we should be concerned about. But I mean, I traveled 2 hours to come here to a meeting and to be given like 3 minutes to say something, and I'm not a fast speaker. I think it's unfair, and I think you should review that. I want to compliment the MO committee, the Policy and Implementation Committee, with the advancement of the MOA. That might put more sense into the decision making and give the commissioners a little more power. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Gentleman in the back.
Just be very brief here. I was looking over Jeff Richter from Pinelands Preservation Alliance, the outreach manager. Looking through the CMP adopted in 1980. Just wanted to read from it a really quick thing here. So, to guide the future management, and this is from right in the beginning. It's So it's under the heading Management of Public Lands. To guide the future management of these important resources, the Commission recommends that the Department of Environmental Protection consult with the Pinelands Commission in developing a comprehensive recreational land management plan for state open space areas within the Pinelands. That's it. Thanks.
Hi, Jeff Myers, lifelong resident in Eagles. I'm glad to see that at least all of you are under the same understanding that it is an enforcement issue. It is a road maintenance issue. I live on the border of Borden, and I've lived there my entire life. My road hasn't been maintained in the last 10, 15 years. You can almost not pass it. If you know what you're doing, you can get through there. The enforcement issue, on my way here, I passed park police pulling someone over on 206. Why? They should be in the woods. I know it's a Friday. I know plenty of people that go in the woods on Fridays. Get out there, you know? So, like I said, the maintenance, enforcement, it's a big issue. And over the last 10 years, it hasn't been enforced. When I was a kid growing up, we got tickets. I'm not gonna sit here and say I didn't do stupid things, but we got tickets. They weren't expensive. We could afford them back then, and you can still afford them now. So if, like you all had already said, raise the tickets. Make people not want to do the things that we used to do that are getting even worse now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, first of all, I'd like to say I've been to many meetings, and this is one of the few where people actually, commissioners or whoever's running the meeting, actually discussed the issues and had feedback. So I appreciate that. It was productive. I heard one lady get up and speak. She said that there was 1,000 acres damaged. And just to make a quick point, 1,000 acres is less than 1% of Morton. She said it would be as high as 2,000 acres, and that's less than 2% of Morton. Touch on what Mr. Roper said. If you're going to go out and look at these areas, I think it would be a great idea if we get an unbiased person to go out and actually map what the actual area is, what is damaged. Because in all this time, I don't believe the DEP has done that to have it exactly what the areas are. And to touch on the sensitive areas, there's no one who disagrees that we shouldn't, that the sensitive areas should not be damaged. Nobody disagrees with that. The problem is how to solve it. And the blanket closures which I speak of close many roads that aren't sensitive areas. And the problem is and hopefully the activists and other people can work together to close the roads that aren't sensitive or to try and include them in
high roads that are as dry as a bone, to include them in sensitive or wet areas just isn't right, and that's a big problem. It needs to be addressed. We need to find out what truly is sensitive and all work towards that goal. And I'm going to touch on Mr. Gletta's point about the enforcement. The rules probably aren't as strict as they should be. Quite frankly, rules can be changed, and rules can be changed in one of two ways. They can be put on the slow track where they take forever, or they can have the power of a board like this or the DEP together to fast track them, to put something behind the rules, some teeth into the rules to enforce these people. If we start enforcing the rules on the bad people, these people with the big trucks, which we pretty much all agree are those people, and you start writing some heavy fines to them, and they start getting that word out there. That word gets out there, it will change things. There's no doubt about it. Are we going to make the world perfect? No, but we can make it one heck of a lot better. If all of us work together and find the common ground and stop trying to fight the little details and make this work. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll make this really quick. So thank you very much for hearing everybody. We really appreciate it. I know I do. I'm glad to hear that a lot of you want to take a tour and actually go there and experience it hands-on. I know you're all very smart people, but you're all human beings. So I would just suggest that you're going to see, and you've heard a lot about the destruction, and nobody's arguing about that, and that's going to stop. And you're going to see that, and you're going to be appalled. But I would also hope you get to see some of the pristine areas that I know and love, to get a balanced view of the forest. It's not all falling apart. It's not all irreparable. So I would just hope you get to see the damage, but also the beautiful, wonderful, pristine areas, which will take most of the forest. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, can you repeat your name, sir?
Oh, Bob.
You don't want me saying it.
Bob Delita from Egg Harbor Township. Thank you.
Joe Duval.
Joe Duval.
Joe Duval.
Jacqueline Rhodes, Pinelands Preservation Alliance. I just wanted to comment on two things, one being the enforcement and whether or not there are laws on the books that can actually help with that, and then the second about the mapping area. First, in terms of enforcement laws, there was a law passed in 2009 that seeks to regulate off-road vehicles, dirt bikes, and snowmobiles. It included provisions that for first offenses, it was $250 fine. For second offenses, you actually could confiscate the vehicle. That is the law now. They can actually enforce that for all-terrain vehicles, dirt bikes, snowmobiles. The question is, how are they defining off-road vehicles that aren't the ATVs, the quads, and the dirt bikes? So that could be something that could be just tweaked, where they can use those same laws that are on the books to include those vehicles that are like the monster trucks and even street legal trucks that are doing the same activities that are outlined in this law that are prohibited. So that could be something I would hope that maybe DEP or this legislature could easily address. And to go back and look at the state park rules where they did do a modification just a couple of years ago and how they defined off-road vehicles, and maybe that takes care of the whole situation. Second, in terms of mapping, tons of information out there about the damage, scientists that have gone out to these sites, great information. You put these people in the room, I'm sure they could tell you where these areas are that are very easily could be taken off the table to say, these areas need to be enforced. Very easily to start out with ponds and wetlands. Why? There's no reason for people to drive through them, right? So if you have a road and there's a cutoff going through the forest that leads directly to a pond, which there are tons of examples, which I hope you will get to see, those are areas that are no-brainer signs. Law enforcement hang out on those roads. You see people go down there you go. You have a lot of your enforcement done and your mapping done. So I would encourage, let's go with those simple areas. As many people have said here, they agree those areas should not be damaged. We're not talking about roads. We're talking about cut through, through the woods to areas that take you nowhere. And I think that would be a great opportunity, an easy starting point, and I would hope that question will be asked by the law enforcement at that meeting next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very quickly. Jason Howell, Pinelands Conservation Alliance. I just wanted to tell the commission that I am as much of a piney as it gets, and I've seen this issue develop over my lifetime. And I've seen what works and what doesn't work. And speaking towards the enforcement issue, absolutely critical, and what the DEP is going to do, which I think is to designate rangers specifically for wardens, is great. It's absolutely great. But they really need the road designations, and in addition to that, these areas that are so sensitive, they need to be physically protected. So gates, as Mr. Avery discussed, get ripped out very quickly in every area I've seen where they've been put up. But you need multiple levels of protection. And working with the state forest as a volunteer group, I have already helped protect ponds, and they have stayed protected. We have kept them in good shape, but we need to expand this effort. And in that mind, we have created a volunteer group ready to go to protect these places. We just need the designations to go and do it. So the enforcement's key, but also physically protecting these places is absolutely essential, because it takes less time for a monster truck to destroy an intermittent pond than it takes you to mow your lawn. They get in there, and spring is coming, so this is a critical time that we need to have protections in place. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Jen Dixon, for the second one. It was great to hear your comments. I feel bad that you got beat up. I honestly do, that some people stood up here and beat up. You guys know your position, you know your job, and do what you have to do. One of the things, these top 20 areas, Nancy, that they're gonna address to you, they've been known, they've had signs, and it's a point of maybe coming up with these options for them to ecologically and sensitively block them off. Jemima Mountain, I guarantee you're gonna see Jemima Mountain, you're gonna see some ponds. And like Jacqueline, I'm gonna hinge on her. These areas that are off the road that are getting damaged, that's what you're gonna see, not necessarily the road. Again, the road will be because of maintenance issues too, and pipes breaking. They used old concrete pipes in the day that broke down and disintegrated into sand. But also, keep in mind, everybody wants these roads, and everybody wants everything available to everybody, no child left behind, all this stuff. Two-wheel drive doesn't get down sugar sand all the time. They're gonna get stuck. So, you know, you're not gonna always be able to get down every road in a two-wheel drive vehicle. And that's one thing, like when you're thinking about roads and maps and are talking about this, yes, you are gonna need an all-wheel drive or a four-wheel drive vehicle to get down those roads. So that's a sensitivity issue of people feeling that everything should be open to them also. And it's not going to with the other vehicles. And the whole mapping issue, everything on the internet, you can't always believe everything. I think there's a really good commercial about that. And there are volunteer groups that are willing and ready to help you. Somebody addressed about the cost of fixing the roads. There are groups. We actually have a nonprofit that started to help with that, the Open Trails, New Jersey. We have worked with, we are working with the DEP, but they're to close off some of the sensitive areas of Jemima Mountain stuff. We have proposed plans to them. We have labor ready and willing that is free, and we have material that is free to do all that. So in some of the sensitive areas that are marked off, please know that there are groups out there that, you know, we want to work with everybody. We're not here to bash you guys, and hopefully we can come to some common ground. So.
Ms. Dixon?
Yes.
Thank you for your sympathy, your empathy. However, some of it's placed, in my humble opinion. We are, not only is our job to uphold the CMP, but it's to listen to the public too, not only the common.
No, I know. I just felt like you guys
I don't believe any of us take it personally. Thank you.
Natalie Nice from Upper Township. I have a lot to say. I just can't all frame it all right. But I heard a lot about, I would call it entitlement and blame. And it's not me, it's them. And coming to these Pineland meetings, I think I've only been coming for maybe 6 months. It's really new to me. And I'm really learning a lot about the frogs and about the habitat and the cranberry bogs. And I mean, it's really all new to me. And I happen to have 5 acres in Upper Township, several different lots. And we have a big issue in Upper Township with ATVs and motorcycle people. You know, so I've sort of seen that over the years. I'm also wondering, maybe it's a dirty word, but you want to talk about dump cameras, what about drones? And climate change? You know, we're having maybe an early spring here. And I would just like to commend the board for going forward with this MOA. I can't help but think that if you had this prior, that this pipeline, this natural gas line wouldn't be coming through Upper Township to the New England plant. And I would like to commend Commissioner Lloyd for starting this process. For some reason, I feel that a lot of these people wouldn't have been here today if he hadn't brought this forward. And I did sit at a meeting a couple months ago where some man just droned on and on and on about these ATVs on the roads. And I can't help but think that soccer fields do have an impact on the Pinelands, because obviously there's going to be a lot of vehicles bringing all these soccer people into the Pinelands. And the flag, it has fringe on it. I think that's the Uniform Commercial Code flag. I don't know if anybody knows, but that has a significance. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else? Yes.
Figured I'd sit in the back and wait for everybody else. You, Charles Hendrickson, I'm out of Jackson, New Jersey. You hit on some of the points where definitely the enforcement needs teeth. A lot of the laws, when they were passed, were going back to the 30s, where $75 was a lot of money. Even the fish and game regulations are the same way. They haven't been updated, and the reason seems to be that everybody's afraid to go to legislation, and that's where you're going to get the teeth. The enforcement and the restoration is a good point. The fine should be maybe 10 times the restoration to deter these people from doing this stuff. That's all I got. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Last chance? Okay, public comment is closed.
They
Have any closed session matters? No. Okay. Does anybody have anything else on the agenda? At the
The MOA with the DEP, there was one in 1993. Was that enforced? Which one? I have a copy.
I would look at it. I would think yes, unless it's.
Well, there's so many MOAs. I'm not sure.
There was a bunch of MOAs with DEP over time.
Right.
Some they never signed, which was forestry.
Right. Oh, that one? No, is that what that is?
No.
No, that's cool.
This is more general than that.
So I don't know, we'll look at it later.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Any announcements? We're going to be closed Good Friday.
Okay, want to give any other dates?
Our next meeting is B&I, when is that?
That's actually, it's on Thursday, which is unusual, so Thursday morning, March
See?
24th.
I had a good point.
So we'll email all of you just to see attendance-wise if that's gonna work for enough people, because it is, March 24th.
Take my counsel, I guess, from me.
Okay. Yeah.
That one's going to be hard.
What's that?
When ending the third.
I know, but otherwise, it would be Good Friday.
No, I understand the
That's good.
reasons.
But we'll send around an email and see.
Well, I wish everyone a happy Easter who doesn't show up to the P&I. It will be
Don't forget to change your clocks.
and change your clocks.
Go to the short course. Yeah, the short course, I think, years is. No, I know. 30 years, 32, or 27. 27. And a long time. And it's always a terrific event. And I hope even if you haven't signed up, you come out and take a look at what the vendors have to offer at Stockton State College. I know I'll be doing part of a presentation tomorrow on the bluebirds. So you were talking about bluebirds, with the bluebird person being chair of the meeting, but for a good reason. You know, bluebirds are a big part of the climate.
We need to memorialize his name.
All right. So what are you saying? We should change it to the Blueberry Commission?
Just to have a blueberry day. March 11th. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, any discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. Thank you. Yes.